Board activities for March 26, 2026. Before we begin, I'd like to ask Jamie Johnson, our Chief Safety Readiness Officer, to provide this morning's safety contact.
Thank you, Chair McAndrew, and good morning to members of the committee. Under the leadership of Metro Transit Police Chief Mike Gonzalo, Metro is a safer system than ever before, with crime at record lows. Initial reports in 2026 confirm crime is falling even further. But we must bear in mind the current international security situation. Metro has and continues to take necessary actions to detect, disrupt, and be prepared should a security incident occur. We do this in close partnership with jurisdictional and federal agencies across the region. And in fact, we're hosting a Safety and Security Summit next month on the 27th of April, where all jurisdictional agencies are invited to share best practice and get an update on how Metro is leading the region. But we must be prepared should an incident occur. Metro employees follow 3 simple, easy to remember steps when responding to an emergency, which I share with you and our customers today. Number 1 is assess. Take a breath, scan your environment, look for things that might harm you or others, observe how people around you are behaving. Number 2 is alert. If an incident does occur in the Metro system, immediately call 911 or the Metro Transit Police on 202-962-2121 or text my MTPD 696-873. And number 3 is act. So only if safe to do so, take an initial action in response to the situation. This will likely be something small and simple, but could be vital. An action might be to leave the area or might be to follow the instruction of a Metro employee or other official. Encountering an emergency can cause emotions to run high. Remembering these 3 simple steps, assess, alert, act, can help you remain calm and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. And with the conclusion there, we'll welcome everybody to this morning's Finance and Capital Committee meeting and get going. Since this is our first meeting of the day, I'll ask the Chief Board Affairs Officer to call the roll.
Chair McAndrew.
Here.
Vice Chair Lowe.
Here.
Director Flowers.
Here.
Director Weber. Here. Director Santos.
Present.
Director Alcorn. Here. Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Ellison. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. I'd like to move to approve the agenda as presented. Are there any objections by members of the committee to the agenda? It's really great that they both are over there. Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Now to the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes for our March 12th meeting before us for approval. Are there any objections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. Thank you. We have a very full agenda for us today across both committees, so we'll get jumping. I'd like to give a brief overview of the topics we'll be covering before we begin. First, staff is going to be asking for the committee's concurrence for 2 items under the board's procurement policy, which was adopted in November. Next, the committee will receive an overview of an operational analysis conducted by external consultants. This analysis, which was funded by the Commonwealth of Virginia as part of Metro's 2025 budget, sought to identify opportunities for Metro to realize ongoing cost efficiencies and enhance revenue generation. Then staff will provide the committee with an overview of the public comments received as part of Metro's FY 2027 budget outreach. And last but not least, our final item is a mid-year update on our current year FY 2026 budget and a revised proposal for the FY 2027 budget that would reduce overall growth. I'll turn the floor over to our team for the first item on the procurement concurrence, but I recognize we've got a new attendee with us here today. Welcome. I've got, okay, yeah, no, I'll hand it over. Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the committee, Madam Vice Chair. Pleasure to be here with you. So my name is Elizabeth Sullivan, and in addition to our new colleague over here, our Senior Vice President and Chief of Procurement, Nathan Tash, I am also joined by our Executive Vice President as well as Chief Financial Officer, Dave Rickard. It is our pleasure to bring before you this morning the committee information for consideration, our procurement activity concurrence package in accordance with Board Resolution M 2025-01. Procurement activities support all aspects of Metro's North Star, and I am trying to see why the screen is not advancing. Here we go. Thank you for that. Procurement activities support all aspects of our North Star, the 3 goals and the 9 objectives of our strategic transformation plan. And if I may, as I transition from this temporary role, I would like to express my appreciation for the opportunity to support our great mission and our strategic plan from a different perspective over this last few months. Our concurrence package for today, as summarized above, includes 2 items based on the established thresholds. We have 1 sole source award, and we have 1 modification to an existing contract. There are no new procurements in today's package. And here are the details for the committee's consideration. Our first item on the list is a sole source award proposed to procure original equipment manufacturer muffler catalyst assemblies required for the midlife overhaul of our fleet 59 to ensure emissions compliance, reliability, and operational continuity. Our second item is a modification to an existing contract. This is to add electrical and telecommunication infrastructure required for our St. Elizabeth radio frequency site. This is also to ensure continuity of work and operational efficiency. Mr. Chair, these are the items before the committee this morning. Staff recommends Finance and Capital Committee concurrence pursuant to Board Resolution 2025-01 for all items included in this package. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say at the outset, one, before I get into my questions, just to thank Liz again in this setting for all of her leadership and work during this period. While I haven't been on the board long, I have greatly appreciated Liz's education of all the procurement activities, and thank you, Liz, for all of your hard work. I know that one of our strategic goals is talented teams, and today, the eve of Metro's 50th anniversary, I think it's great that we have a colleague like Liz who is exemplifying these ideas of a talented team and leading from the front. So thank you, Liz, for all of your work that you've done in this. I did have just a quick question about the St. Elizabeth's bit, right? Not about the specific modification, but rather just the kind of the project as a whole, right? Is that our colleagues at the WMSC had put out a special study about this kind of project in general, and one they noted is that that the project costs for this project will have nearly doubled. So talk to us about kind of, is the project still on pace, right? And the fact is that there is this idea that we're going to be done, by June of this year. Wonderful. However, our colleagues are suggesting that we're anticipated to be done by December. Is there, are we still on time for these deadlines? And then also, are we expecting any more modifications?
Thank you. I don't know the details, unfortunately, of the specific project. I can speak to the contract vehicle. So this is one that has received a number of modifications. And as a reminder, it looks a little weird to see a $30,000 modification coming to the board. And that's because the contract has had cumulative modifications well in excess of $1 million, which is the board threshold. So any new modification then triggers board review. In aggregate, this contract has had over 100 modifications. We did finally get that list yesterday, but 2 modifications generated more than half of the variance from the original contract. One was an increase to the number of high-tier portable radios, and the second was an extension to the period of performance, mirroring the extension to the project duration. So many of the others were no-cost modifications, so wouldn't trigger, and a range of other ones that were in sort of the $5 million range and below, most of them in sort of the 5-digit range.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
All right. Before I go ahead and call for approval, I would just like to also echo what Director Flower said. Liz, thank you very much. You nimbly stepped in and did it with grace and helped us through in building a strong foundation for Mr. Tash, our new Chief Procurement Officer, who joins us after a distinguished career in the federal government. And we're looking forward to working with you to build upon the stronger foundation, and continue to improve on our ability to deliver the mission. So welcome aboard. With that, I'd like to move for approval. Can I get a second from a committee member?
Second.
Perfect. Seconded by Director Flowers. Unless there's additional discussion, I'll ask Ms. Ellison to call the vote.
Chair McAndrew?
Yep.
Vice Chair Lowe?
Aye.
Director Flowers?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Next up, we've got the DRPT Guidehouse Operational Analysis. At the outset, thank you for your work on this important matter. For the record, do you mind introducing yourself before you get going?
Thank you for inviting us here today. My name is Megan Perez. I'm an associate director at Guidehouse, and I'm here with.
Hi, I'm Angie Schuler. I'm a director with Guidehouse and oversee our transportation and transit practice.
Great. So we're here today to share the findings of Guidehouse's operational analysis of WMATA, which was conducted from September to December of 2025. So while the work, which was brief in time period, was comprehensive and required a broad expertise. So there's only 2 of us here today from our team, but during the work, we did engage members of our transit team, strategy, economics, and AI during the course of that engagement. And we're here to share the findings of all of that today. Our agenda is largely going to cover a summary of the key findings. I think the board has received previously a lot of additional information, and we're happy to take questions on that as well. We'll also share an overview of the recommendations, the opportunities that we identified, and potential next steps. We'll also have a block at the end for Q&A, but I'm also happy to answer any questions in between if you would like to ask them as well. Oh, here we go. Great. So the scope of the assessment was to focus on WMATA's current $2.5 billion operating budget with 2 primary areas of focus. So we were looking at the operating expenses and areas to reduce those operating expenses as well as grow revenue. As a secondary focus, just because of the overlapping effects, we did look at WMATA's capital budget through the limited lens of reviewing capital expenditures that might cause direct growth on the operating budget. We also were able to identify operational efficiencies that could further support budget sustainability, but were not necessarily included in our cost estimates. The assessment was conducted over a 12-week period where we assessed the current state of WMATA's operations. We dove into opportunities using quantitative analysis and benchmarking, techniques for containing costs, enhancing revenue, and addressing operational efficiencies. And then we synthesized those opportunities to guide WMATA's board and management in decision-making in the future. So this assessment was ultimately, we wanted to serve as a living resource for the WMATA board and management. It was intended as a starting point for us to look at operating expenses and revenues and ways that we can cut costs and grow revenue. Our intention was that this report was not meant to be standalone, even just for the next budget cycle, but identifying opportunities that WMATA can even use between the next 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years. So if we could, apologies for that. The opportunities identified in the assessment were really grounded in a detailed data and analysis. We did have only 12 weeks time, but we were able to look at quite a bit of data. We focused on primarily 5 years of budget data, so the last 5 years, last 5 fiscal years. In addition to that, we looked at other performance reports, any other kind of reporting that was done on WMATA that we've seen within the last 5 to 10 years. Those included over 100 documents. We also looked at reports and recommendations from other transit agencies or partners. We looked at reports, for example, from the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, DMV Moves, SJ28. All of those were incorporated into our findings. And lastly, we spoke specifically with over 20 plus WMATA executives, the Virginia Department of Transportation, Rail and Transportation leaders, and other transit experts. So if I move into the main kind of context setting for our analysis, we see that over the past decade, from the fiscal year 2015 to 2026, WMATA's annual budget has grown at a compound annual growth rate of 4.1%, which equates to a real growth of 1.3% per year above inflation over that same time period. And I know I mentioned that we focused primarily on 5 years of budget data, but we wanted to provide a larger picture looking at the budget in general, just for this, the context, given that the pandemic had, some fluctuations there. So when you look at the funding sources over the operating budget over this period, you find that the subsidies from DC, Maryland, and Virginia have actually grown at more than twice the rate of the growth rate at 9.2%. The growth in state and local subsidies shares is to compensate for other source reductions. Primarily, if you look at the federal funding from fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 2024, that's largely the expiration of the COVID relief assistance, as well as lower passenger revenue and major system expansions, such as phase 2 of the Silver Line, that increase the expenses. The context of broader stakeholders is highly relevant, as the 3 jurisdictions also face fiscally challenging environments with rising costs. And so this was essentially the context for the assessment: to delve into WMATA's operating budget, understand the underlying cost drivers of the budget, and identify ways to contain or reduce the budget to sustain WMATA's fiscal situation. We wanted to make sure that our report also built on WMATA's existing efforts. We believe that WMATA has taken significant steps over the past few years to address the operating budget challenges. There are quite a few examples here. We haven't provided all of them, but for example, from fiscal year 2023 to 2025, WMATA achieved $257 million in operating savings through a variety of measures. In terms of revenue, WMATA also has $50 million in potential new lease income, along with other strategic revenue initiatives that they are currently going through. In short, we do believe through the analysis that WMATA has made progress in achieving cost savings, some of which are going to be realized in out-year budgets as well. Our opportunities and recommendations that we list today are meant to complement those existing efforts, including the Strategic Transformation Plan, the Digital Roadmap, and the Capital Improvement Plan, by identifying supplementary measures to decrease the operating expenses, grow revenue, and drive operational efficiencies. Before we get into the opportunities and the recommendations, we just wanted to provide a quick overview of what we identified through the current state analysis of WMATA. And so if you look here, you'll find that WMATA's operating budget is largely dominated by personnel costs. Approximately 72% of the total operating expenditures are attributed to labor and fringe, which includes labor, wages, salaries, overtime, healthcare, pensions, and employee benefits. Peer benchmarking indicates that WMATA's allocation of operating costs, particularly on the labor side, is broadly comparable to that of other large major transit agencies, which on average have approximately 60% of their operating budgets on labor and fringe. This is a wider issue that we see, particularly at Guidehouse as we work with other transit agencies, that labor is a rising and growing contributor of the majority of transit agencies' costs over the years. And so it's something to consider, across the board for all transit agencies. The remaining 28% of the budget is allocated to professional and technical services, such as, things related to non-personal costs like materials and supplies, fuel, utilities, and other things. When we look at labor in particular, the size of WMATA's workforce is a key cost driver here, with headcount having grown annually 10% since fiscal year 2021, as modernization and operational efficiencies do continue. Overtime is a growing contributor to WMATA's labor costs, particularly in those that overtime expenditures were often exceeding 50% higher than budgeted. On the fringe side, particularly pensions, they often drive the fringe expenses through the requirements of the collective bargaining agreements. More than 77% of WMATA's employees do participate in pensions. And an example of growing costs is that pensions, a lot of these pensions do not count overtime earnings as capped. So those pension benefits can grow exponentially with that. Professional and technical services have also grown since 2021. We've identified 56% growth there. And while a smaller share of the budget, multiple stakeholders did express opportunities to reduce the professional and technical services, as well as all the other expenses. And on the revenue side, although passenger revenue is steadily rising post-pandemic, WMATA has actually had one of the largest sort of passenger growths back to stabilization after the pandemic. There is still a need to pursue potentially additional fare box recovery and other revenue opportunities.
Megan, sorry to jump in.
Yes, of course.
Acknowledging the amount of slides and the amazing depth of stuff you have here, I do want us to be able to have like good dialogue. So I think if we can get a little bit breezy on kind of summary on the slices. I mean, I'm looking at the overtime stuff and I'm like, let's spend some time there. But yeah,
Great.
It's a little breezy. Thank you.
I'll move forward. Yeah, we can skip this one. So if we get into the opportunities, we did identify 30 potential opportunities for WMATA to consider, which could result in up to $147 million in savings and $61 million in added revenue. I will caveat there that these figures are directional in nature. They're meant to sort of offer a prioritization of these recommendations, looking at potential cost savings, but further analysis would really need to be done to zero in on those numbers. Those 30 opportunities were spread across operating expenses, revenue, and operational efficiencies, with the majority focused on addressing the high labor and fringe costs, followed by other expenses. On the revenue side, we looked at growing and diversifying revenue streams and improving cost recovery via collections and fare increases. And then we had a few other additional ones that were related to operational efficiencies as well. The assessment didn't calculate a lot of the operational efficiency recommendations, largely due to the data limitations and time. If we get specifically into the labor recommendations here, a substantial portion of the savings was in this area. If you look at sort of the columns, we estimated the cost savings. Organizational impact really represents a qualitative assessment of the level of organizational change that would be required to implement. And then we wanted to make sure that we denote if there needs to be any collective bargaining agreement involvement, because that heavily influences the implementation of these. So opportunities 1.1 and 1.2 also represent cost savings as they relate to headcount, but they were divided amongst union and non-union, represented and non-represented employees. I think if I can move forward to the next slide and then we can have questions, but This slide largely focused on sort of the workforce consolidation opportunities, the first two that we identified there. We looked at across the board, sort of out of the positions of WMATA, what might be some that can be consolidated or shifted. And so we were able to calculate approximately, if we're looking at 7 to 12% of total non-represented and less than 1% of represented employees, what impact that would have on the organization. As far as implementation, there's a variety of ways that WMATA can implement a workforce consolidation, anywhere from a reduction in force or as simple as, or as limited as a hiring freeze, which WMATA has executed before. If we move beyond the labor recommendations in particular and we get into fringe, we were able to identify ways that WMATA might be able to reduce their pension liabilities over time, or also reduce things like adjust healthcare plans to consider alternative benefit plans. You'll notice that some of these, particularly those that relate to the pension calculations on 1.9 and 1.10, have here low estimated annual cost savings currently, but as those are realized over time, they're likely to have additional estimated cost savings annually as more people matriculate into the new rules. We get into all other expenses. We have quite a few additional ones here, focused on decreasing reliance on staff augmentation contracts, also looking at energy savings, modernizing maintenance shops, simplifying design standards across those, considering asset management life cycles, a variety of initiatives here that we kind of went through every bucket of WMATA's operating expenses outside of non-personnel and identified opportunities there. Most of these were not costed out given the data limitations at the time of our analysis, as well as the time limitations. But we do feel that they will yield quite a bit of savings. If we switch to go to the revenue side, the largest one we see here is increasing passenger fares. We know that WMATA does have a plan in the future to increase those fares. We've also considered it here, given, I guess implementation, thinking about what kind of increases we would be looking at. Other opportunities, WMATA has a very large station footprint, parking lots. They have quite a few parking lots, so looking at ways that we can lease underutilized parking lots, increase parking rates, or perhaps use those larger station footprints to consider other opportunities that might grow revenue in those areas. And lastly, on the operational efficiency side, we identified 6 opportunities that WMATA could position itself to improve its long-term planning and decision-making related to the authority's financial sustainability. These initiatives do not immediately yield quantifiable savings, but they are expected to support better decision-making and create conditions in the future for future cost containment. And so we have those, 6 listed there. And overall, the 30 opportunities identified in the report, as I kind of quickly went through, will require careful consideration of collective bargaining agreements, change management, service quality, and coordination among WMATA, the board, and jurisdictional funding partners. But we do believe that these actions can help WMATA address its structural fiscal challenges and move towards a more sustainable financial future. The last slide I have here is looking at all of the analysis that we did conduct, looking at the 30 opportunities that we identified. We were asked to look at, well, what next? And we have identified, 3 particular areas where we feel WMATA can take action to convert the assessment into results. These 3 steps are selected because we do feel they unlock the greatest potential for near-term impacts on costs and revenue, and collectively, they do create an analytical foundation to move from the preliminary opportunities into actionable board-ready decisions. The first is on a workforce assessment. Largely, this is related to the 72% of labor and fringe that goes into the workforce. How do we tackle that? And this would look at evaluating staffing, scheduling, overtime drivers in a more precise way, more detailed way than we were able to conduct in the time that we had with this assessment, and considering alternative workforce structures. So looking at, for example, what can be done in-house versus what can be outsourced, what is being outsourced that, might have higher rates that can be insourced. So not just looking at workforce consolidation, but a variety of ways of how can we maximize the workforce that we have and drive efficiencies at the same time. The other that we looked at was an analysis of demand-driven fare increase scenarios. We know that WMATA does a lot in this area already, but looking at building a defensible revenue model through updated elasticity and scenario analysis. And the third we looked at is conducting an AI and operational efficiency readiness and prioritization. We did identify multiple opportunities for AI, automation, and improved analytics. We know that the team at WMATA is already working on quite a few of these initiatives as well. We've spoken heavily with that team there. But the next step we feel is really about prioritization. So identifying which use cases which have been identified are feasible and how to support sort of piloting and implementation of those as fast as possible. We feel that this third one also goes hand in hand with the workforce assessment, although all of these can be done separately. When you start to consider AI and automation, digitization, how is that really going to impact the workforce? And how can you embed that into the workforce assessment to really consider how you're moving your workforce forward in the future with the advancements that are happening right now? And with that, I will stop there and open for questions or go back to provide any more details.
Thank you. And I'd say from the board's perspective, really appreciate the independent analysis that's been done here, and want to acknowledge our former board member, Mr. Smedberg, who helped kind of bring this one through the procurement wicket to get this one done. So appreciate your support here. I'll open it up to the committee for any questions. Dr. Lowe?
Thanks. I have one question about Appendix 2, which I realize wasn't presented, but I just want you to know I did read. Did I read correctly in that appendix that all of the analysis of the bus network and the performance measures shared there, if I got the dates right, it looked to me like it was all done on the previous bus network and does not reflect the bus network redesign. Is that correct?
Can you elaborate on which part of the appendix?
Is there a specific slide or anything that you're looking at?
There were a bunch of stats in there about like revenue per mile and other kinds of like efficiency measures like that related to the bus network.
Yes, the majority of those were taken from the National Transit Database. So whatever was the latest reporting from the NTD.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we should, while it's phenomenal to have this kind of like third party assessment of how things are going at Metro, I'll say that, like, for those who may not have looked at Appendix 2 yet, you can save yourself a little bit of time on the bus piece, because I think a lot of those metrics are things that just need to be revisited post-bus network redesign. I'm particularly interested in the overtime topic that's that's raised here, and I think, this is a topic that we discussed a lot. And so I was thinking, I just want to suggest to board colleagues and also to the management team that maybe that's something that we should like roll into like the next talented teams update. I think there's a metric about that in the STP. And so maybe that's something that we should just like update the board on and highlight when we do the talented team, each time we do the talented teams update, like on an ongoing basis.
I think that's great. I also think we have the opportunity later today when we're talking about the budget to talk about overtime in relation to, growth. Do we have the folks we need, and are we going to be able to adequately hire so we can start to decrease this overtime rate, right? And understand that, the hiring freeze we had a couple of years ago impacted the ability to properly serve. But I also think as we grow, if we're bringing folks on and we're just going to serve it by overtime, it's going to create challenges that continue to persist, right?
Yeah, there were a lot of comments in the budget book that were like, WMATA needs to hire bus operators.
Anything else, sir?
Yeah, you have some very specific suggestions about how healthcare is managed at WMATA, but you didn't look at the opportunity of consolidating health plans at WMATA. I'm not sure how much general awareness there is of the fact that Metro has to manage 6 separate health plans, which just doesn't seem that efficient. Is there a reason why you didn't look at consolidation and you instead looked at, what was the exact phrasing, like alternative benefits management, I think?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that, Dr. Lore, goes back to just the availability of information at the time. So agree with everything you just said and would advise that to be an area you look at in the future. And
Yeah, I think it's
certainly
kind of hard to
would
do
love
because
have
it's
looked
like,
into
it's
that.
because of the CBAs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that like we have to try to find some way to consolidate these. And that's a topic I've been hearing about at Metro for a long time.
I think also with the consideration of alternative benefit plans, there's an opportunity to do that within that.
Overall, I think my key takeaway here is just that it's really great to see a third party independently validate the STP that we just put so much work into. I'm really pleased to see that on every slide of recommendations, 50% or sometimes way more are already in the STP. I think that really just speaks to how things are moving in the right direction at Metro, right? To your point about like how the team's already like doing all this stuff with AI. Do you have any specific recommendations that you particularly want to highlight that are not in the STP?
I think it really goes back to the 3 that are on display here, and these are broad areas intentionally designed that way. So one, just really want to underscore there's more analysis that is needed. So these are intended to be directional. They were one-dimensional. And oftentimes we were looking at data, quantitative or qualitative, but did not take into considerations, other dimensions that you would, in a normal analysis. So our recommendation would be these 3 areas. Through these, you will collect the data that's needed to really be able to dive more deeply into the other 30. It's hard to not think about doing something workforce related. So whether that's overtime or from a contract like staff augmentation standpoint, which is why workforce, if I had to choose one, would be the area that I would recommend you look at next.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
CBAs is also the other one. I think there's some opportunities with like the overtime capping, but that, to your point earlier, does get a little bit more challenging. Not to say that you shouldn't look at it because it's challenging, but it's a little bit more difficult.
And I think just to add on the workforce piece, this detailed workforce assessment that we're considering, at Guidehouse, we work with a lot of transit agencies, and what we're finding now is transit agencies are looking and asking to have broader workforce assessments, not just because their budgets are primarily workforce and they're having shrinking operating able to access those operating expenses, but also considering the shift in what is happening in the transit environment with automation, with AI. What kind of workforce modeling can you do to consider not just the cost that you have now, but what will your workforce look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
I mean, honestly, I think that's correct, but I think it's so much bigger than transit. You know, I think every single one of us, like regardless of where we work, is going to be going through something like that in the next 10 years. You know, like if that doesn't happen at all of my other jobs as well, I'll be really shocked.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we commend WMATA for often being on the forefront of a lot of advancements. And so I feel like WMATA has to think about these things a little quicker than everyone else just because they're moving forward with, you know, technology advancements quicker than other agencies.
Thanks.
Of course.
Director
Yeah,
Flowers?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to agree with Dr. Lowe here on the
That's
idea.
right.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Right. On the focus here on kind of, I think the importance of, if we're going to look at anything right of these three recommendations, a detailed workforce assessment I think is prudent. Only because of the fact that if we're looking at, you know, 72% of our costs, right, this is where they're at, right, and that this is important, right, is that and I just wanted to agree with her on that, in that I think we all share the same goal, right? That these kinds of third-party evaluations are very, very helpful because it confirms that we're headed, to her point, right, in the right direction with the STP. But it also confirms that we also have the same goal, right? So I actually want to commend the management team thus far, right here, is that we have a plan that puts us in a direction that has the authority, have a sustainable amount of structural costs that we can invest the rest into the number one thing, which is delivering fantastic service. And at least for me, and I know that because this is an initiative that the Commonwealth asked for, is that I just want to say, one, thank you to Guidehouse, but thank you to the management team thus far, right? Because, you know, I think this is one of the things that we are very pleased about, is that, you know, we're headed in the right direction. So thank you, Randy, to the rest of the management team here thus far. In terms of also thanking, right, in terms of talented teams, right, I do want to make a special reference to thank you to our Chief Board Affairs Officer, Jennifer Ellison, right, for her work in shepherding this, right, at the staff level. You know, I would be remiss if the Commonwealth didn't thank Jennifer for all of her work in collaboration with the Guidehouse team and with our colleagues at DRPT and NBTC for all of their work here. You know, I think for us, right, the other things here is that I do. One of the things that I remember, I think we asked in our other brief, is when looking at revenue growth, right? A question I had was about beyond looking at a reimagination of fares. It's also looking at what were to happen if we were to have a even distribution of revenue, of fare collection across the system, even as it currently stands. Right. Talk to us a little bit about that. Right. Are there things, right, that we can do around kind of just fare collection? That would get us, is that if we had a certain amount of standardization of fare collection, even right now, just as things stand, would that improve our situation here?
Yeah, if I recall the details, we did look at, you know, thinking about the different transit systems and how they collect across. You know, I think that WMATA, from what I recall, WMATA it's doing quite a bit on that already. On the fare collection, you know, I think everybody knows about the fare evasion, particularly on bus. We were looking at it and costing out what it would take to, you know, reduce fare evasion, but you have to consider sort of the manpower and the impact on the budget if you were to increase that versus how much you would receive. So there's a lot of trade-offs to that. We're happy to discuss it in more detail. Yeah.
The only other thing I would say is that I'm very interested in learning about the kind of the asset utilization options, right, that we talked about it here at the end, right, is that some of the creativity that we have in some assets that might be underutilized in different parts of the day, right, or even thinking about the things around what they talked about in kind of concession and leasing options. I would just, you know, love to in the future kind of get some of the ideas that we have there, right, because I do think it's it's a unique option that I think that also this agency could have in kind of continuing to lead the way, right? Is that if we were to add this kind of innovation into transit, right, around using our assets that are sometimes maybe used Monday through Friday a lot, but then have a steep drop off on the weekend, right? Things like that. Would love thoughts there.
Thank you, Director. And before handing it over to the chair, one question that comes up, and first item is a detailed workforce assessment. So I would imagine we do some form of a workforce assessment on a regular basis, maybe targeted at a specific stream of work. But I'd love to get a little bit more detail if you can kind of expand on scope, scale, or what you've seen that we're doing that we could expand upon. And maybe thereafter, GM, if you want to respond to that question as well, that'd be good.
Yeah, so I think this one can be as sizable or not as you'd like it to be. So what we envisioned here is something that would be in the nature of about 6 months. You could maybe even use the word pilot associated with it. So pick a very designated area, come in, do the analysis, develop the model, and then see the results of that. We could pick an operational area, we could pick a back office area. There's pros and cons that we could talk through with you about which of those, but it would be a small framed 6-month level of effort, and then we could decide sort of the next steps from there. And yes, there is some prior work that has been done, and we were involved in some of that work. And so this would be, depending on the area that you chose, potentially picking up on some of that work that stopped short of taking it to this point.
Sure. I think the way I would respond to this on that topic is we presented a budget to the board, and the professional staff does work. That is our workforce assessment of what we need to deliver to the strategic transformation plan. And I have a lot of confidence in our senior executives to know how many staff they need to deliver their components. And we are constantly looking at, especially non-operating staff, how many we need to deliver. And the budget that is in front of you to discuss today has 85 vacancies removed from Omada headcount. And I think that's another example. Budget growth this year is going to grow 1.8%. And I would suggest just being at a conference with transit CEOs over the weekend, the number one topic that Andy and I heard was how Metro is leading the conversation nationally on cost efficiency. So we're very proud of the cost efficiency stuff we're doing. Staffing is just a never-ending analysis at an organization this big, but I have a lot of confidence in the executive team looking at their units constantly. It's like an onion. As one thing moves, something else is going to change. So it's not so much as staffing. I wouldn't really think about something like a workforce assessment. It's where we want to be, concept of operations, and then staffing is a component of that. So good example is fare modernization. Staffing is a component of that, and that's going to evolve and change. But it's really about how we want to collect and manage fares long term. That's where we want to concentrate on, and then not per se the staffing part. So that's how we would look at it.
Thank you. Chair?
Thank you. Just a few points. Echoing my colleagues, first of all, thank you for the very interesting assessment. I learned quite a bit. I hope my board colleagues did as well. And to reiterate the thank yous to former Chair Paul Smedberg, who really shepherded this through, and to Jennifer Ellison. This report, from my perspective, really underscores the board's focus and management's focus on sustainability of the system, in addition to safety and quality of service. As we invest in innovation in the future, but also we have to make sure to continue to tighten and improve in the background. And I also think this is an example of the board's responsiveness to our jurisdictional partners. So again, this was in collaboration with Virginia and DRPT, and appreciate that this is extended across administrations, and again, shows the responsiveness of WMATA board and management to opportunities for partnership in the region. Also wanted to note, because it's my understanding is that more than 20 staff worked with you all and many hours were spent either with you or also producing information. So really appreciate that. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to make sure to give you all a chance to present some of the findings, because your findings as well reflect inputs provided by staff. Next, also want to acknowledge the very difficult situation of, as you've said, a number of the recommendations are difficult to implement because there's constraints related to CBA. It's going to be a couple years before that really is going to open again. And I know our management team has done a tremendous job in collaboration with leadership on the union side. And I just want to acknowledge that this is it's a common good for our region to address some of these problems. It can't be saying that it's purely any side's fault or anything, but I know acknowledging that these are going to be issues that need to be tackled in coming years. And lastly, as I believe my colleague Director Lowe mentioned, Metro is doing they've commenced rolling out a number of the recommendations, particularly in the AI space. And so I know that there's a presentation later this morning related to some of the exciting initiatives that are coordinated through Judd's team. And look forward to hearing more about that, because there are definitely opportunities for savings related to using technology strategically around supply chain management and obviously procurement. So I think on a positive note, there is momentum in some of these directions. So, workforce is difficult, but there's some of these areas that I want to acknowledge that management's already leaning into. And so again, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Next up, we've got Director Alcorn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So thank you again for all your work. Appreciate that. I think this does provide really information to the board that can be useful, not just now, but over the coming months and maybe years in terms of starting points for discussion. And I know some of the issues that have already been, mentioned by board members over time, other things are definitely priorities. And I know some of these are also going to be discussed as we go through the budget process. As we, in Virginia, at least, as the General Assembly comes back for their budget session on April 23rd, I think it is really important for us to take this seriously and, frankly, to underscore our commitment to cost efficiency, revenue increases where possible, and frankly show that we are fiscally responsible, and that so this is helpful as we're asking our legislators in Richmond to basically provide us the resources we need to do our jobs and to make the system work over the longer term. So I would just ask one thing of Randy, of you. I know a lot of these things are being addressed currently by management. That's been mentioned several times. Is there any one or two things in particular that jump out as potentially promising areas or areas that we might want to focus on more over the coming year or two?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. One, I always thank anyone that would like to come in, and we're wide open, we're transparent, we produce a lot of information. I see members of the JCC that look at the same type of information. We get audited by 3 states and the federal government kind of nonstop. So we're very open shop, and really proud of our benchmarking and information. So with that said, not to sound kind of overly cynical, but everything in this report is similar to every transit efficiency study I've seen in 20 years in transit. So it doesn't mean they're not all valid, but they're the same themes. So CBA drives overall most of our expenses as an agency, our variety of CBAs. We're a very heavy labor intensive piece. And then on fares, the revenue piece, there really is an alternative to revenue. There is no using our facilities for gaining other revenue. These things have been tried all over. The only places that successfully do those in the world are major Asia systems, and they are ostensibly a real estate organization that runs transit at the same time. So we would love that. Obviously, we're not going to shy away. If someone wants on a Saturday to rent a parking lot and give us $100,000, if someone's watching, we would take that immediately. But things like that, station naming rights, those things just haven't really, it's been kind of off and on for 20 years in the industry. Nothing's really taken. And then most of the community doesn't want those kinds of things anyway to commercialize the public space. So, but we're going to look at everything. We're going to take all this. I think to me, it validates that the stuff that we've worked very cleverly with the board on and STP is the right path ahead. Some things we're further ahead on than others. Others take, it's a generational change. So, so we take that information and we look at it as a positive, either validation or some nuances that we're going to continue to do on our work. But again, nothing, I think you would find this is, if you went to LA Metro and did a study, if you did one in Chicago, you did one in New York, they're all going to be very, very similar. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Randy. I guess the one thing that did jump out at me, it was actually early in the presentation, is just historically how the subsidy has grown faster than overall revenue. And so I totally agree. And what it made me think about is, and I know we talk about this all the time and we have an approach to our fair policy, but that's something we've got to stay on top of, I think, over time to continue to stay current and sustainable in terms of our fair policy and making sure that that bears the appropriate balance or bears the appropriate burden for system operations.
Sure, yeah, and I think that's the same thing you would see across the entire country as well. So the pandemic fundamentally changed how transit is funding in the United States.
Yep.
And I would say that's never going back. The fares will never equal the proportion of revenue that it once did. And we've talked about it, I think, pretty extensively 2 years ago. I think we've highlighted in next year's budget proposal, management will definitely make to the board a budget proposal to increase fares. But the cost dynamics and revenue just fundamentally flipped in society, as well as other things as well that are fee-based structures around public service. So that's why we work so hard on fare collection specifically, the fare evasion on the rail side. The rail side that brings just so much revenue. So we went at that first. And we are working very, very hard. I look at the report every single day on citations and the way the chief and the team are enforcing on the bus. But we have a very systemic cultural society issue on bus fare evasion. And if we had that solved, we would be in a much better long-term revenue spot. And we welcome any tools or ideas and leadership from jurisdictional partners on that for sure. So.
Yeah, I would just, and I think we're doing this anyway, as we go into next year and we look at our fare and what we're going to set our fares, looking at the elasticity of different options and, how much flexibility might we have that wouldn't actually have a significant impact on ridership. So I look forward to that next year.
Yeah, that'd be a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll jump in. I was going to ask a question about revenue, just because I think, the challenge that I see, and I'm not a pro in this space, but I believe we're going to get to a place where our ridership might start to plateau as we get back towards kind of a historical model. Our operating keeps going like this, and essentially at some point in time, our fares can't continue to cover. So somebody needs to pick up that slack, or we need to cut service, or we need to figure this out. It's a tough, tricky situation that we're in, and I think, eventually we're going to get there. We've been very fortunate to see the growth, and we've been very fortunate with the efficiencies that have been able to be achieved. But at a certain point in time, there's only so much you can squeeze out of it. But I think at the end of the day, we are doing good work. It's a little bit of a looking ahead to the next items that we got for us today. But if there are no further questions.
No, Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would add at the end is this is actually maybe a question for staff, is that if the board wanted to look at these three suggestions from the Guidehouse team, and if we want to look at it like kind of a next step, what's the process, right? And I don't know if in a
Great question. So in a few minutes, our two items from now, we're going to be talking about the budget. So we can go ahead and talk about what we want to do. We've got about a month between now and when we finalize the budget. And fortunately, we have opportunities to put things in there that say we'd like to see certain things done.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, the one thing I'd just add, though, that the budget is a one-time view. It's a yearly view. And I think some of these issues that you've raised for us are really systemic. I mean, the general manager just mentioned that post-pandemic, we're seeing real changes in the overall use of transit. So I think as we look at that, that important annual step on the budget, staying cognizant of the need to continue to look at long-term structural changes, and being very thoughtful and very fair. I mean, I know it's nerve-wracking for anyone to start talking about the workforce and about benefits and fringe, but given the high proportion of that in our budget, I think we have that responsibility to look at, again, thoughtfully how to plan for the future and how to really position those talented teams for success in a new environment.
Yes. Good work ahead. We appreciate your support on this endeavor. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. Next up, we've got the FY 2027 Budget Public Engagement Report.
Good morning. Today, we will be sharing the results from the online survey used for the FY 2027 Budget Engagement Report and reviewing key highlights from the report. The open comment period for the FY 2027 budget began January 17th through Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. During that time, in addition to the historic storm we faced, we also received 1,136 survey responses, 615,000 community outreach touchpoints, and 31,000 digital engagement impressions. Through our survey responses, 99% of comments came through that online survey, while 88% of our Spanish-speaking customers completed the Spanish survey through the Transit app. Through our in-person and virtual public hearings, 7 individuals provided testimony on the FY 2027 proposed budget. The Riders Advisory Council, and we thank them, their members shared information to hearing attendings during the open house. For our community outreach, we also distributed 20,000 brochures in our stations and buses, and we conducted 80 outreach hours at targeted stations and Metro bus ride-alongs to collect feedback specifically from our P93 and P97 customers. We also notified 3,500 of our community leaders through our stakeholder database to help promote information of the budget proposals and service changes. Printed ads were included in 8 publications, including Atref in Amharic, El Tiempo Latino in Spanish, Doi Nay in Vietnamese, and Washington China News in Chinese. Ads were also posted in the Washington Afro, the Washington Informer, and the Washington Post. Digital engagement impressions of the live stream public hearings had over 700 views on YouTube, and there were more than 1,800 website views in both English and Spanish, and over 28,000 impressions on our social media platforms, including Facebook, X, and Blue Sky. I want to thank our customers for providing such helpful written comments. The top 5 themes were service reliability and headways at 32%. Customers shared feedback on prioritizing frequency and on-time performances, especially on Metro Bus. 19% of our customers provided written feedback on the Better Bus redesign, coverage, and on connectivity. There were concerns about disrupted routes, loss of direct one-seat connections, and requests to restore or reroute certain specific lines. 13% of the comments were centered around fares and compliance, especially on keeping fares affordable, but strengthening fare enforcement to maintain perceived fairness and value. 13% of the comments were around safety, cleanliness, and comfort, desire for safer, cleaner stations vehicles, concerns about onboard behavior, and some customers support having platform screen doors to improve safety and reliability. 11% focus on the span of service and access, calls for later overnight options to match real-world work schedules and improve personal security after hours. This slide highlights an overall positive response for the operating capital budget proposals and service proposals. Among respondents who gave feedback to specific proposals, support was overwhelmingly positive, with many items drawing approval in the 90% range and strong reported increases in likelihood to ride, especially for proposals that had either frequency increases or span improvements. Key highlights for our service proposals include, for Metro Rail, 92% of our customers approved more peak hour trains on the orange, silver, and blue lines. 95% approve more frequent orange, silver, and blue service on weekdays, and 96% approve red line late night frequency improvements. For Metro Bus, there were 2 significant changes that would impact routes for customers who ride the P93 and P97 particularly. 73% of customers approve the P93, P97 trade-off. 72% approve of the P93 service changes, while 83% approve of the P97 service changes. We've also highlighted some verbatim comments from the top 4 themes of the survey. The service proposals tested, especially those that increase frequency and span, land extremely well with all of our respondents, and they clearly connect to a likelihood for increased ridership. At the same time, customers' responses to open-ended questions state that day-to-day reliability, safety and cleanliness, and the better bus network remain top of mind issues, which the FY 2027 budget and service proposals did not address or solve. Our team is also ready to engage on the proposed additional bus service improvements in the District of Columbia, which my colleagues will share in the next presentation. An online survey will be open from Friday, March 27th to Monday, April 6th, and the results will be incorporated in the future public engagement report. Happy to take any questions.
Dr. Lowe?
Thanks for that summary. I thought that was I read all the comments, but I thought your summary was like very accurate as to like kind of what stood out in terms of patterns. We got a lot of Spanish comments this year. Like this is the most Spanish comments I've ever seen. Like I know that the Spanish language engagement in the budget has been increasing every year. Whatever you're doing, it's working. The issue is that, I mean, this is a little embarrassing, but like I don't speak Spanish. So I couldn't like read any of those comments. I mean, I obviously physically could read it, but I don't know what it said. Can someone, this is not to make more work, but like, could someone like translate?
Of course, we've already done that.
And like, and I just like, I'm not saying like, and do it now, like someone, like presumably there's like lots of people at Metro who speak Spanish. And so like someone read all of those, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, but like, but I would read them too if they were translated for me. I'm sorry to ask, but in future years, if we could do it like at the same time as the other comments, it would be super helpful. There was one comment in the board book, in the list of comments, about how like when Metro proposes a bus service change, that we should like show the data that justifies the change. And I did not submit public comments on the budget. Like I don't exactly know what they saw, right? So I don't know exactly what they saw, but I want to cue up that like as we discuss like the potential bus service improvements in DC that we're going to discuss later today, that like I thought that comment was really smart. And so a question that I'm going to have when we get to that topic is, how are we identifying the highest value opportunities to advance the visionary network? Since we're not doing the whole thing, like how do we prioritize that? And so this is not like a question answer right now. I'm just like foreshadowing that I will be asking this question again when we get to that budget presentation. And then the other thing that I saw in the comments that has not come up yet in this presentation was a number of people asking for night bus service to the airports. And obviously not in the budget proposal for this year, but I just think this is like a topic that we should talk about at some point.
We concur.
Any other questions? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Keep moving. We'll be moving on to the FY 2026 mid-year financial review and revised proposed FY 2027 budget. And just acknowledging the time, appreciate the concise, breezy approach that we've asked for everybody else before you here today. Thank you.
Do love that breezy. Absolutely. Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Kandra and members of the board. I'm Dave Rickard, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, joined by Tom Webster, Executive Vice President and Chief Planning and Performance Officer. And today we'll be presenting on two topics. One is the 2026 mid-year financial review, and then revisions to the FY27 proposed budget. This presentation focuses on each of the Metro's three strategic goals: service excellence, talented teams, and financial and organizational efficiency. The FY26 mid-year highlights are summarized here. For the operating budget, strong ridership and revenue growth so far in FY26 are helping to offset operating expense pressures, keeping Metro on budget. On the capital side, we've had a number of successes, including the launch of Tap Ride Go on Metro Bus, numerous bus and Metro Rail improvements, 116 new Metro Access vehicles, escalator and elevator replacements and rehabilitations, and new security cameras on 182 of Metro Rail's 6,000 series rail cars. Looking at the results through January, overall, Metro is on budget. Total revenue is $27 million over budget, led by strong rail passenger revenue and parking revenues. And this is despite the impact of the extended federal government shutdown in the fall. Our total expenses are $28 million over budget as cost pressures from higher propulsion, paratransit, and personnel costs continue. So taking that mid-year results and projecting through the end of the year, this is the full year forecast for FY26. We project higher revenue and expenses, but no net change to the jurisdictional contribution or preventive maintenance compared to the original FY26 budget approved last year. On the capital side, the capital program is supported by the board-approved budget of $2.1 billion. The spending on that is $995 million through January, and the February numbers about $1.2 billion. We project by end of year we'll have spent $1.9 billion. There's some investment schedule changes that are driving that lower spending, including delays in bus delivery, mostly due to manufacturing capacity constraints, and delays in railcar vehicle deliveries, primarily due to design delays and manufacturer testing challenges. Meanwhile, we've had success in advancing numerous investments, including program development activities for Red Line rail modernization and design and engineering work for a new Metro training center and fleet maintenance facility. Any questions on FY26 before we go to FY27?
I just have one quick question. So the underspend on the capital side, just to kind of walk me through it. So we budgeted at 2.1. We financed for 2.1, right? We went to the bond market for 2.1. We're rolling. No, we didn't. Okay. Well, that's the answer I was looking for. Thanks. Don't want to exhaust that debt capacity too early if we don't have to.
If I could, Chairman Kandra, I think importantly, the capital program is a six-year capital program with a multi-year financial plan and an expenditure plan. Our budget year is a forecast for expenditures during that year. What ultimately gets issued for debt and is calibrated for our actual or our anticipated expenditures during that year, and then updated before each new debt issuance. So we're able to calibrate the capacity of the program to line up with our current expectations, even though the budget is a snapshot basically once a year. So there's some variability between cycles.
I was hoping we weren't carrying extra financing, which it appears we aren't. So thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'll continue on to the FY 2027 revised proposed budget. As a reminder, FY 27 budget discussions with the board began in November when a high-level fiscal outlook was presented. In December, the general manager proposed budget included overall regional subsidy growth of 3% and bus and rail service improvements. You just heard about the public engagement from January and February and the targeted outreach, including 3 public hearings held on February 3rd, 4th, and 5th. The proposed budget is now being revised because of updated revenue and expense assumptions based on FY 26 mid-year financials. Metro is also modifying the proposed budget to respond to jurisdictional budgetary constraints. At this time, I'd like to present some historical context for Metro's operating budget. The framework for the way the operating budget gets developed has changed a lot over the past several years. 2019 was the last time we had a budget formulation that was similar to this year, where there was aggregate jurisdictional growth of 3%, but the regions varied within that. Then beginning in 2020, there was a 3% state level cap. So for several years, each jurisdiction's increase was set at 3%. We also had significant federal relief funding available to Metro during COVID. In FY 25, the subsidy model was reapplied without a 3% cap, and jurisdictions committed additional subsidy funding. And that was also the year that all the federal relief funding was expended. In FY 26, the budget reflected board-adopted restructuring of the bus and rail allocation formulas with subsidy growth of 3% and additional subsidy to replace the loss of federal relief funding. The FY 27 proposed budget presented last December is similar to the 2019 with aggregate jurisdictional contribution increase of 3%, but variance among jurisdictions. However, this variance meant that Maryland's subsidy growth exceeded 3%. So in order to reduce that jurisdictional subsidy growth, we revised the budget proposal, including deferring some bus and rail improvements and beginning a new abilities right administrative fee. Compared to the original proposal from December, Maryland improvements have been deferred beyond the start of FY 27. We've added District of Columbia improvements above the proposed original plan. The Metro Rail improvements will still happen, but they'll be delayed until December. And then for Abilities Ride, we're adding a $3 per trip administrative fee. I should say we are proposing an additional $3 administrative fee. The net impact of these on our growth rates for by service, Metro Bus stays about the same at about 7%. Metro Rail, due to strong ridership growth and fare compliance, was already a reduction year over year in terms of jurisdictional subsidy support. That drops even further with the delay of the implementing the new services. Metro Access, with this Abilities Ride fee, instead of growing a projected 13.4%, becomes 7.2%. Still the fastest growing component and significantly above inflation, allowing us to continue to maintain a robust service. So in aggregate, as we've heard earlier today, rather than the 3% total increase, we're now looking at a jurisdictional subsidy overall of 1.8%. So this is what the new 2027 proposal is. We've got 2 columns that are the original proposal in black, and then the green is the revised proposal coming in now. You can see in aggregate, expenses go up, reflecting our mid-year financial review. Revenue up $14 million, reflecting our projected increases for things like Tap Ride Go and multi-day parking. We've added a prior year savings estimate from reconciliation of prior past revenues of $12 million. So the net savings from those 3 is about $15 million compared to the December proposal. We're proposing an increase of preventive maintenance of $7 million to bring the overall subsidy growth from 3% to 1.8. And here you can see the jurisdictional impact of that, where there's now no jurisdiction above 3%. We heard earlier today about the long-term growth rate of Metro's operating budget being above inflation. As a reminder, we've committed in this new board-approved process that we will cap jurisdictional subsidy growth at a maximum of 3% every year. Because of that, if there are years where we're below 3%, there's no way to recover that. So just as a reminder for what that means for our budget in aggregate, being at 1.8% this year instead of 3% over the next 10 years, if we return to a 3% growth, costs us about $232 million compared to growing at 3% as indicated in the December budget proposal. If this happens every year in the next 10 years, which obviously we don't know what next year's budget will look like, much less 8, 9, 10 years from now, but if we're at 1.8% every year, that's a shortfall of $1.2 billion compared to a growth rate of 3%. So we recognize there are budget pressures and we want to be responsive to funding constraints. But we did build an operating model premised on growth at 3%. If that's not something that we're going to be able to do on a sustainable basis, we're going to need to think about other ways to make sure we've got a sustainable path for our operating budget. So the revised capital proposal, Tom, do you want to speak to this? Of course.
So just briefly on the capital improvement program. So the board will recall in the January timeframe, we proposed 2 alternate capital programs, one that assumed additional regional investment consistent with the recommendations of the DMV Moves effort, and one that assumed basically status quo forecast for available capital funding, which is a much more significantly constrained outlook for capital reinvestment and a lower level of investment than we've been making for the past several years. So we intend next month to bring forward, of course, a balanced 6-year CIP and a balanced FY27 capital budget. And at this point, what that looks like is a similar program to what we proposed in the no additional investment scenario. And what that means is we will be not programming many of the capital reinvestment needs and programs that we anticipate driving the performance of the system for the long term. So a much more bare bones 6-year CIP that shifts to a much more reactive rather than proactive investment plan. So what is included in that is the continuation of our ongoing projects and programs, and then really a downscaling of those reinvestment lifecycle programs over the latter years of that 6-year CIP as we need to be preparing for a period of lower funding and lower reinvestment. And of course, on the right-hand side are, with additional investment, the type of investments that we would be looking to program in future CIPs. And then finally, on the next slide, we have our next step. So as the chair mentioned, board adoption of the budget and the 6-year CIP is anticipated next month on April 23rd. We will be, subject to feedback from the committee today, conducting some additional public engagement on some of the bus service concepts for implementation in the District of Columbia, as those were not included in the previous public engagement. And that would then get rolled into our final Title VI analysis before the adoption of the budget. And then that package of board consideration for approval would include the normal operating budget, the 6-year CIP, our Title VI analysis, the staff report or the final staff report that Sarah covered briefly earlier, an update to the debt policy, and a concurrence resolution on our plan and approach for the Red Line Rail Modernization program. So we'll have more detail on that next month, but that's our schedule and our intent for the next meetings.
Perfect.
Thank you for the breeziness. I will open it up. I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of discuss as a group kind of where we're at, where we want to go as well, and give some direction to them as we're looking about a month out from getting this budget done. So before I open it up to the group, acknowledge we appreciate the responses that we got last night to some of our budget stuff, but it came a little late for us to be able to leverage those responses in a meaningful way for dialogue today. So appreciate it. We look forward to further dialogue on those copious amounts of questions that have been asked thus far. But with that, I'll, anything from the committee?
Yeah, can we go back to the slide that shows it was like 4 tiles, one for each mode. There we go.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, as we were talking through this slide, you highlighted that in the new operating formula, there is a relationship between the revenue that is collected and the ultimate jurisdictional subsidy that is required to operate the service. Can you explain what that relationship is?
So thank you for the question, Dr. Lowe. I think in the case of Metro Bus revenue that is collected on bus routes in certain jurisdictions is credited to that jurisdiction's subsidy, essentially. So what that means in practice is if there are variations in the level of fare compliance and fare collection, the subsidy for bus service in a jurisdiction that has lower fare compliance will be higher, and a jurisdiction that has higher fare compliance, the subsidy will be lower.
Okay. I mean, all right. So for Metro Bus, I mean, this is one of the categories where we're seeing growth above 3% in terms of the subsidy trend. Do we know what that is broken down by jurisdiction?
We do, yes. We can certainly send that to you.
Can you, like, top line, is there any, like, do you already know, like, what's inside that box at all?
I have that information, but not off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I think that seems to be like, it's really Metro Bus and Metro Access that are the drivers here of understanding how we think about budgeting for operations in this budget, at least. And it seems to me that it's really critical, both at the board, but also all our jurisdictional partners understand the connection between the two. I think we need like absolute maximum transparency on what's happening with that at the jurisdictional level. I understand that we are operating a regional system here, but given the jurisdictionality of the way the operating formula works, I think we need increased visibility here. Because walk me through a hypothetical, like my recollection is that the bulk of Metro Access trips are in Maryland?
That's right, Dr. Lowe, about 57%, I believe.
Okay, so that's a majority. And so Maryland has unusual exposure to those operating costs in the formula.
Correct.
Okay. And then on the bus side, like my assumption would be that both the district and Maryland have higher exposure than Virginia.
That's correct.
And that's not just because Metro's operating more bus service in those jurisdictions, but also because I think I'm recalling from another report that compliance with the fare policy on bus is like double in Virginia. It's much better in Virginia. It's like double, half. I'm struggling to get to, but it's basically like twice as many people are paying.
That's right. Correct.
Or twice the highest share of riders. It can't possibly be twice as many people. Okay, twice the highest share of riders. Okay. Are the DC and Maryland fare policy compliance rates similar or different?
They are on scale with each other. Fare compliance in Maryland is lower than it is in the district. And as we've discussed in some previous sessions of the committee. There are some contributing factors, including the adjacent locally operated bus services in Montgomery and Prince George's County have gone fare free, which, so a bus that is operated by Montgomery County, a ride-on bus is free, and an adjacent Metro bus has a charge. So there is some, as the committee can imagine, some confusion among customers about which buses you pay for and which ones are free.
Okay. So given that that is like already the existing reality now, do we have like close to real-time kind of trend data about like what are we seeing in terms of trends in compliance with the fare policy in Maryland?
We've seen improvements across the board as we've introduced Tap Ride Go on bus.
And the sign on the front?
The sign on the front on the head sign of the bus that says fare required, as well as the enforcement efforts that were discussed earlier this morning, and some other factors around customer communication and education. We've seen more significant, in terms of trends, improvements in the district and in Virginia than in Maryland.
Okay. I think where this is going for me is that if we need to limit subsidy growth, revenue is a piece inside that formula. And in future budgets, this is not even getting into that giant growing gap thing. In future budgets, I think that we need to be considering the possibility that like ultimately service planning is going to have to take into account the revenue that we anticipate collecting. So like, I just want to spell out like really clearly that like we can't operate the same level of bus service in Maryland, for example, at a capped rate of subsidy if revenues are declining. There was a comment that someone wrote in on the budget. Someone who lives in Fairfax wrote in and said that Metro should be investing in service on high revenue corridors, irrespective of the actual ridership demand. And I am not endorsing this comment, I want to be clear, but I was just like, I was struck by the fact that like someone filling out the Metro budget survey had essentially like intuited what is happening on this slide. I don't want that to be the way that we run this, personally. So I think that we need to have conversations with all of our jurisdictional partners. I don't know. I'm also interested to like hear from other board members, like especially colleagues from Fairfax, perhaps. Yeah. But like it's just a coincidence that that guy, whoever wrote that comment, lives in Fairfax. But like this is something that we need to think about as soon as like next year's budget in terms of the service plan.
Listen,
so Board Member, I think I'll jump in with a comment on this. So two comments that are connected together. One, our future is either people pay fare, jurisdictional pay subsidy at a higher rate, or we reduce service. That's
exactly.
That's the simple math of what we are.
The operating formula does not allow anything else.
Yeah, I wouldn't even word the formula. There's a couple inputs, right? And it's either, so if everyone just paid their fare, we would be, the whole conversation here would be how much new service we are increasing and how many more bus operators specifically we have to hurry up and hire to run way more service. But we have a bunch of people that don't want to pay the fare. And so therefore, we have the opposite approach, which is not only not implementing service, but potentially a scenario where we're not hiring bus operators.
Okay,
next year we could be laying
but as a point of order, it's actually two things. If people don't want to pay the fare and jurisdictions don't want to pay higher operating subsidies. I just want to highlight the possibility that there are some jurisdictions that do want to pay a higher.
That's why.
But What there
DCP.
can't be is the same level of service, no increase in subsidy, and no fare revenue. That's, wherever that is on the Venn diagram, it's, the overlap is not there. Those circles aren't touching.
Yeah, so that piece. And then what we could do, if the board wants us to look at this, and we got to be careful with Title VI on this, but we could, and Tom could go through this, especially for next year's budget, is we could weight fare recovery at a higher value within service enhancements. But again, still has to, through the Title VI.
Well, that's just what one budget commenter wants.
Well, there's a lot of people that look at that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Like if you went to Vegas, has run that way for a long, long time.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, a version of that because they got to run the service and there's no money. So anyway, that for next year's discussion, we could certainly look at routes. Like the D80 is a good example. Our D80 route is probably maybe our highest paying route in the district.
That's all me.
I'm not sure your card, but it's also one of our higher demand continued growth corridors. We have other corridors where we have less than 10% of people pay on the bus, but they're also high demand corridors.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know that the district would support that.
Yeah, I was just giving this hypothetical approach, but yeah, I think you're highlighting we either need people to pay, or jurisdictions are going to have to pay more, or we're not going to grow service, or we may actually even reduce service.
Yeah, I think that, look, I think people understand that nothing is actually free. like everything costs money. The question is who is paying.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, let me just, let me align myself with Dr. Lowe's comments.
That's right.
Is that, listen, I think that from the Commonwealth's perspective, right, we're concerned that we find ourselves in this position, to be frank. And I think it's especially because it builds off of what Dr. Lowe was talking about, is that we had a subsidy formula that did account for these things, right? We had a subsidy formula that did account for these things, and it talked about, understanding the reality of revenue collection that came into, and then it would be addressed in the subsidy, percentages for each of our jurisdictions. And it's concerning that now we're revising the budget following the public hearing process due to, a single jurisdiction's costs exceeding their initial expectations, or, frankly, that are, the aspiration. We understand that the fiscal outlook in every jurisdiction is challenged, but I think from my perspective, we would hope that every one of our jurisdictions would take the steps necessary to ensure that we need our customers to pay for the service that they're gonna that they're gonna use, right? That is an undergirding principle of this authority, that we need our customers to pay, and that we also need to maybe look at that and be mindful of the fact that our customers are having this thing like this one, budget commenter put into the budget comments. Listen, I think that the staff proposal and the management proposals are reasonable, given the fact that we are in this position that one jurisdiction has asked us to put ourselves in the authority answer. However, I do want to emphasize the idea that the increasing preventative maintenance transfers, it's not a good financial practice, and has overall implications, right, for the health of this organization if we were to continue this practice in perpetuity. I'll save comments again for abilities, right? But I do want to also say is that I do think, to the point, Dr. Lowe's point around maximum transparency, is that while the law may not require us to do to have a public input practice, I do think it would also be a good practice, moving forward for these changes. And then, kind of the path forward on this idea of just the subsidy. I would hope that all of us could work collaboratively across our jurisdictions, right, to establish a clear subsidy policy, right, that we can all agree with, because I just don't think that it is productive for us to have this formula and then say on the, when we try and actually go and implement the budget, that we say, oh, this doesn't meet our expectations, and then there has to be reductions across the entirety system to meet kind of one jurisdiction's expectations. And then the last thing I would say is that if indeed we are successful across all of our legislatures, as it relates to DMV moves, right, and that the legislative subsidy caps are suspended, I do think that the board does need to have an explicit policy in concurrence with management and in jurisdictional buy-in around what subsidy growth should look like, right? And have that be explicit, even if those subsidy, caps are removed from us in policy. That's where I'm at. It's one of those things where, overall we're concerned. We need people to pay for the service. We need to be committed to the user pay model. And that I think that for us, right, if we are successful in some of these kind of transformational bits that we're in terms of resources that we're talking about, we need a clear alignment across all the jurisdictions on what subsidy growth will look like, even if our legislatures remove that constraint from us.
Yep. So, as a representative from Maryland, it is asking to get to 3%. I just want to acknowledge a couple things that it is fiscally challenging for us to get to 5%. And unfortunately, the budget that was proposed did not provide optionality to get to 3% without the measures with which are being taken today. So I think the challenge is that if we're going to be going over 5% or over 3%, we need to make sure that we've got decisions, because we've had an ample discussion. There's various paths to get there: increased subsidy, increased fair payment, service cuts. Unfortunately, the third was not on the table, and we can't go back out for public comment to go ahead and close this budget in time. So that I'll just leave it at that. But I appreciate the concerns, and we don't like to be in the position that we find ourselves in the state of Maryland. But at the end of the day, you also need to manage what we can afford, and I think what we can't afford is the 3%, and that's what we're able to provide at this juncture. So opening it up to the full board, Chair.
Thank you, Director McAndrew. Just a few observations. I think that some of the comments here by my colleagues are about aligning incentives and accountability. So the notion of getting everyone to pay is partially, it's an individual accountability issue, and that requires cultural change. And just want to acknowledge that I think it's important to say that Metro is doing its part. And really this is a regional collaboration, an opportunity for regional collaboration to hold ourselves collectively accountable. There's some positive ways to do that. I know that COG leadership, Randy and others have been quite involved in the idea of creating more consistent approach to FAIR, so as not to have this issue that was raised about customers potentially being confused. I would argue that it's not just being confused, but feeling entitled. It's a mix of the things. So there's individual accountability, and then as well as jurisdictional accountability. On the topic of cultural change, just again acknowledging cultural change is hard, whether it's issues about paying fares on bus, but anything. And I know that comparable transit agencies are also struggling with the same point. So just again, want to reiterate, this is not unique to Metro. This issue of paying fares and fare enforcement. I know that colleagues in New York have gotten creative. As I was joking around with the general manager a number of times, they have Cardi B on the announcements telling people to pay fares. We're looking forward to hearing what our team here is going to be able to do creative as well. But I know that I wanted to ask just a minor question related to this notion of accountability. I saw that citations have increased, which is great. But my impression is that there isn't a link between citations and payment necessarily. So citations may have gone up, but I don't know if collections have commensurately increased. And I think it's, again, not an issue of Metro, but maybe our jurisdictional partners. But if you could just speak to that issue again, which is an opportunity for our collaborative partners to step up on their side as well to assist in this issue.
Thank you, Chair. I think just two key points here. One, yes, citations are up. Importantly, citation revenue goes to the jurisdictions, not to Metro. So the enforcement and the follow-up around the actual payment of the citation resides with the jurisdiction where the fare infraction occurs. And yes, to our knowledge, payment of the citations has not increased at the same rate as the citations themselves.
If I can, Madam Chair, again, not advocating for this, but for next year's discussion, like if our jurisdictional partners wanted in law to change where the revenue for citations went to us, we could then in theory, and you could argue there's more of an incentive for us on citations, but we could also then modify our trespass process where someone with X amount of violations is now trespassed from the system. So again, from a policy point of view, there's lots of levers to pull. Again, not suggesting, certainly don't want to go down that rabbit hole today, but for next year's budget and the next year's legislative cycle, right now we can give out 1,000 citations a day. It goes to whatever jurisdiction, and they determine how they're going to process them, if they're going to follow up, if they do follow up, what they even do with the revenue or whatnot. So, what we really want is no citations. We want people just to pay and have a safe and sustainable system. But those are the things I think we should have more conversation post this budget about the nexus between legislative, maybe rules that were put in place with right intent, but the world we live in today is a completely different world. Same thing with our cameras on our buses for people violating red bus lanes or bus stops. All that revenue goes to the local jurisdiction. Maybe that's great, maybe it's not, but there is clearly a nexus between Metro's performance and the incentives on systems to have compliance.
Okay, one more thing that brings to mind is that just with the changes that are coming from the federal level about SNAP enrollment, that we are just not going to be in a good position regarding the way that Metro Lift is administered. Because like another kind of like super obvious thing that this conversation brings to mind is that, we are just an order of magnitude off in terms of participation in that program versus eligibility that we already know is out there. And honestly, the eligibility is probably even bigger. So like, I think that we need to we need to get on top of that. I don't even know if we've like started. Joe, I feel like I saw an email from you about this.
I did ask a question about this. Especially if, that fair evasion is not just simply the one choosing to do it because they can financially afford to do it. Sometimes they can't financially afford to do it. We have a great product and we're not utilizing it as well as we can. So in the state of Maryland, we're working with, our HHS and our local workforce boards and such to try to go ahead and leverage automatic enrollment for those folks that receive it. But if we're relying on SNAP and SNAP keeps changing, we might need to broaden or think differently about what the entry point is or the mechanism therein. I know Director Weber and her day job has some experience in terms of the hospital there in enrollment and participation. But I think at the end of the day, greater utilization and thinking flexibility is going to be important on that front. Chair, are there any other questions?
No, but just to reiterate, we're going to continue this discussion, correct?
Correct. I'm going to go over to Director Weber.
Just a quick one while we're on this slide. You modeled and are suggesting a $3 fee for the abilities, right? Did you model at $4.50 and just to create parity between the two ways in which folks utilize Metro Access?
Great question, thank you. We did look at a range of options. There were a couple of reasons why we landed on $3. One is we wanted to make sure there wasn't confusion between a fare that's charged through Metro Access versus a fee for Abilities Ride, because the Abilities Ride, it's purely an administrative fee associated with making the connection to the provider. It's not a Metro provided service. Second, it's in our interest to keep as many people as possible using Abilities Ride when they have the capability to do so. That's a much cheaper per trip service for us to provide. So again, if we're dealing with customers who are able to use that service, we want to make sure that they're continuing to incentivize to do so. And then third, just while the maximum fare on Metro Access is $4.50, the average fare is about $3.30. So again, we sort of took all those factors into account. We know that our cost of administering the program is north of $3, but we can certainly justify that based on our current cost of providing the service, and with those other factors in place, that's why we landed on $3.
Thank you for that insight.
Director Alcorn?
Thank you. Sorry to wrap up your committee on a negative note,
I've got a
but
couple questions.
okay, good. All right. But I want to get back to a couple of the structural issues that we're looking at here. This is, I mean, the fact that we're looking at a 1.8% subsidy increase, I mean, that's below the rate of inflation. That is not sustainable. And I appreciate Director Flowers' comment that we need to look to see if 3% is the right number going forward. My bet at this point, it probably is. You know, we're looking at inflation, other costs that are out there, but the reality also is in our region, we are growing around transit. So this is more transit that's needed. It's basically reflecting our growth pattern, and that's been that way for the last really couple of decades at least. So we do need to look at that, but right now we're digging a hole by coming down, and I know that it's been 2019 since we've had an active formula and figured out how that can relate to 3%, but we have to get back to a process where jurisdictions go a little above 3% or a little below 3%, or whatever that number is ultimately that, you know, that we plan for. And I think it's critical for us to do this and retain the integrity of our subsidy formula. I mean, this is in the compact. This is one of our board's fundamental responsibilities. And I don't think we should also move away from something that was inherent in the recent formula update, which is, particularly on the bus side, you get what you pay for. I think we need to continue to hold ourselves accountable for that, you know, whether it comes, you know, mostly from subsidy, you know, also from fare payments by our customers. But this is something we're going to have to deal with this, you know, going into future years. This just is not sustainable.
Okay, expansive we, right?
Yes.
The region, not
Yes.
just this board.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. I will try to be breezy so we can wrap up and keep this thing moving. One question to Tom in the capital budget. When it was presented in December, I asked a question about the 8Ks. Would we really forgo option one on 8Ks? We've had a little bit of dialogue as a board since then, but I don't know if we necessarily have come to resolution on that. And in the CTP slide that you had indicated 8Ks would be not funded under the current construct. So I'd love to have a little bit of public dialogue on that one.
Yes, Chairman Kendrew, in the proposed CIP that's before the board that assumes no additional regional investment, again, as recommended by D&B Moves, we do not program funding for the 8000 series option one. The base railcar order is programmed and funded. The timing of the option one award is in the next capital program cycle. But if the board were to adopt the proposed CIP, it would remove the program funding for that. I think a couple of considerations here. There is some interplay and some considerations among the available funding for the capital program in total and the vast number of needs that we will have that are unfunded. And that's part of the reason for the recommendation is preserving some capacity for reacting to assets as they fail. The second is with the rail modernization program, as that advances, we will be able to operate the same level of service with fewer rail cars and or add service with fewer incremental rail cars. So as part of this discussion, we're taking another look at the longer term fleet strategy and some of the implications of implementation of rail modernization for that. And I think just finally here, there is a little bit of room in terms of timing of the option award because of some of the delays we mentioned earlier in the production of the base rail cars. So the specific deadlines that have been referenced before are a little bit in flux.
When do you think we will have the updated fleet strategy for our review?
We're intending to bring that back later this year, but after the adoption of this 6-year CIP.
Gotcha. I just think it might behoove us to think about conditioning or what language is in the budget. We might just want to sharpen our collective board review there just to make sure we're comfortable that we are, if we have to forego, that we're understanding what that means and ultimately how we bring it back if needed. Right?
Do you mean in terms of like the service, like kind of like the maximum amount of service that we can do with the fleet that we have?
I'm principally thinking about the timing of when you got to do the option one with your manufacturer. So I think, understanding is probably not today. It's probably not between now and April 23rd, but it might be between April 23rd and the next fiscal year budget discussion we have. So I just think, making sure we got capacity if needed, if so determined, it might be needed. I've got just a couple items I just want to flag, and then Director Lowe has one last item. So we're going to have a few more dialogues on the budget between now and close. I think today was very helpful. I think there's 3 items I just wanted to make sure the board was aware, and for staff as well, would like to work with. One, I haven't shied away from bus priority being a core want here. It is oftentimes something that WMATA doesn't control in terms of right-of-way and prioritizing the bus, but they have a great benefit to be received. And so I'd like to work through, if there's a path with each of the jurisdictions around an opportunity to leverage capital funds here at WMATA to accelerate bus priority investments. I have ideas, but it should work for the collective. Fair modernization and evasion. So we had a good dialogue here. We had a discussion last September at this board meeting about modernization with a specific interest in having WMATA moving into a position to be a fair system equipment enabler for our local bus providers, thinking that that can lower the upfront cost of modernization there, but also hopefully help us on the fair evasion side as well as revenue. I'd like to work with you all to explore this opportunity through the budget and get to a place that we have some level of go-forward trajectory. I'd also like to continue to sharpen our focus on fair evasion. It seems like that's pretty clear we want to. We aren't seeing progress equally throughout the system, and I'm concerned about some planned changes to payment processes that could have further erosion of our rate of return, specifically looking at the all-door boarding on the bus system. And then lastly, rail modernization. I think didn't spend a lot of time talking about it today. We've spent a lot of time talking about it over the last year. I think, we're in position to advance it. I think we all are aware we've got a signaling issue that we'd like to address at a minimum, but the team has done a lot of work. I think we need to condition advancement of that work but they're still at the early stages in terms of modeling, but not yet kind of digging in and doing. And I'd like to work through with you all on resolution on a strategy around kind of regular cadence reporting to us on strategy development, which is in flight, staffing development, which is in flight, as well as project development, commercial development, engagement with our labor partners, WMSC, and with our federal partners with an intent that, that will then help us get comfortable with the full program if and when we need to get there. So those are the 3 items I'd like to continue to work with the board on between now and April and with the support of the staff. With that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Lowe for the last question here.
Yeah, thanks. My question is about something that was in the appendix, and so it hasn't been shown today, but I already foreshadowed it when we were talking about the budget comments, which is I wonder if you could give me a high-level overview of your team's thought process as you think about, like I came to you guys and was like, let's do more on bus in DC. What do you do with that? How did you develop the concept that has come back?
Thank you, Board Member Lowe. So just a brief summary, and then, of course, we can go into more discussion. The Visionary Network was sort of the first step in the network redesign, where we looked across the whole region and really designed the ideal bus network for our region.
And that I get, but we can't do the whole thing. So how do we nibble an enchilada?
So in developing the network redesign that was actually implemented last year, we built that to the resource constraints and the projected resources that were available for the network redesign. So essentially the same level of resources redeployed. And as was discussed earlier, the service became much more efficient as a result of that, reducing unproductive time or deadhead and some other factors that made the service more effective and more efficient.
That was a big win.
At the time we were doing that, we knew we were leaving good, valuable ideas on the table just because of resource availability. So we have a pretty long list of here are things that could be implemented in year 1, year 2, year 3, and then ultimately all the way to a visionary network. So when that question comes, we're going to our tiers of priority investment, making sure that we're current on data that's available to us on current ridership and things that may have happened in the interim, and then looking at the things we know customers want. So most importantly, frequent service. So there are a number of places across the whole region and including in the district where our service isn't as frequent as we think it needs to be to drive ridership and meet customers' expectations. So that's really a first. A second is, so a couple of years ago, there was the implementation of the 24-hour network in DC on select routes. I think it's up to 13 or 14 now. There are others that would help improve the overnight network. So that's another area. And then, of course, we have as road congestion and traffic congestion is happening, we're seeing different travel times and other things. So there's some cleanup and fixes to schedules that the team's constantly looking at and trying to find resources to address. So it's a little bit of a combination of those things. And then, of course, we can change how we're weighing different levers here. So to your earlier question and comment on we look at efficiency factors like riders per mile or riders per hour as we're looking to get the most value for an increment of service. So what we're talking about in the revised proposed budget is not a lot of additional service. It's increments where we expect to drive ridership and gain some more efficiencies out of the system.
Okay, that's really helpful. I think that it is a juggling act to fix boo-boos from the bus network redesign, deal with the fact that congestion is an ever-changing monster that you just have to wake up and fight all over again. There's probably some Greek myth where some guy had to do that. And then, but then also never forget the vision of the visionary network. That is a lot to do at the same time. Can you give me an assessment of in terms of kind of where we are with the potential investment we could make in DC bus service this year? Do you feel like we're in a good place in terms of impact, in terms of value for expenditure?
Yeah, yes. There are certainly opportunities to improve the effectiveness of the service and to drive ridership. We're acutely aware of that. There are, as you said, there are some areas where the schedule doesn't yet match the actual experience. So it's not perfect by any stretch. But in terms of the full visionary network, we have a ways to go. We're adding an increment of value here that's or potentially adding an increment of value that is efficient and effective, but it's not anywhere close to what our region could be.
I mean, my sense generally is that we actually, I don't think we could implement the visionary network incrementally, really. Aren't there some big leaps that have to happen? What's the biggest obstacle to implementing the visionary network?
In the
I'll
near
answer,
term,
John.
go ahead.
Money.
But yes.
No, just to be shorten it up. So we need funding if we want to run the bus service that the region truly says they want. what all the elected officials at DMV moves really highlighted that they say they want, and that the region truly needs if we want to drive a better economy in our region. And then second,
But don't we
need a
also need
lot
bus
more-
priority?
So second is we need a lot more bus priority, specifically red paint, signal priority, dedicated bus lanes. We got to get people out of the bus stops. So we put all those things together. So I think we're slowly but surely making some progress, but we need to start making some big, and I appreciate Board Member McAndrew bringing that up. We got a few obvious things people have been talking about for a long time, and it's time we really say bus matters in this region and make some big projects happen. So we'll happy to dive as deep as you want, any sessions in the future on those things.
I think this is plenty for now. Thanks.
All righty. With no further business to come before the committee, we stand adjourned, and we are now going to rapidly turn the floor over to Mr. Alcorn for today's Safety and Operations Committee meeting. That will also be as breezy as the committee that just wrapped.
Okay, let's move through this. We do have one agenda item here, but thank you, Mr. McAndrew. Welcome to today's Safety and Operations Committee meeting. Our first order of business is to confirm and approve the agenda. We have today's agenda in front of us for approval. Are there any objections by members of the committee to the agenda as presented? Okay, seeing and hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Now let's go to the approval of minutes. We have the minutes of the February 12th meeting. Are there any objections to the minutes as presented? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. All right, now to the one item on the agenda. Staff will be providing information on Metro's digital modernization program and how this program, including the shiny new object today of artificial intelligence, is implementing new technologies and transforming Metro. So I'm going to turn the floor over to our Chief Digital Officer, Judd Nicholson, to begin today's presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the board, members of the senior leadership, and guests. As Mr. Alcorn indicated, I'm Judd Nicholson, the Chief Digital Officer here at Metro, and I am pleased to update you on the Digital and AI Ecosystem Acceleration Program. This program is a part of the newly approved Strategic Transformation Plan. Although the program is nested within financial and organizational efficiency area, the projects, just like others in digital and AI, span all parts of the STP and the authority. Before I talk about what we've achieved over the past 3 years, I just want to take a few minutes to describe the background and approach that we've been taking to this digital acceleration. We started this journey nearly 3 years ago. Our priority has been to rebuild our digital foundation by focusing on customer service delivery and launching big modernization efforts. For example, modernizing our enterprise resource planning system, ERP, streamlining and centralizing scheduling with our HASTA system, and modernization of our on-premise data centers. We also put significant effort into ensuring the cybersecurity of our environment. With those pieces in place, we shifted our focus to setting the vision of creating a WMATA digital ecosystem, continuing to modernize major enterprise systems, which included our call centers and our customer communications platform, and the focus on accelerating the implementation of technology that support the reimagining the work of our frontline workers do at Metro. During the digital modernization update last summer, we walked through the reset of the organization with a focus on defining clear roles and responsibilities, improving that service delivery, and mitigating the risk, as well as finding efficiencies within the organization. Over the next 2 years, we'll be focusing on building out the organization, hyper-focused on ERP go live, on building a strategy for asset management modernization, improving our help desk, and looking towards a customer relationship management system. We're also accelerating the deployment or development of digital products and activating AI across the authority by rationalizing and modernizing our underlying data architecture. Fundamentally, our goal is to build a digital and AI ecosystem that is built on a solid, modern, and scalable foundation, enables the unlocking of core data and the management of that data to get insights from AI, delivers products that bring business value to all aspects of the work we do here at Metro. I now want to turn to how we are planning to turn this plan into reality. In our previous brief to the board, we described a new delivery model called the two-speed approach, a model endorsed by Gartner and McKinsey as critical to delivering a large-scale technical modernization. Speed 1 is focused on delivering products with speed and agility. Speed 2 focused on stabilizing infrastructure and core operations. I'll highlight some examples of each of these as I go through the presentation. Here are 3 examples of how we have put rapid delivery of technical capability into practice. During our recent snowstorm and in under 12 hours, the team was able to build an application that could track snow clearing at our bus stops in real time. This change is a paradigm shift from months to hours to deliver core capability to our frontline operation and our customers. Our print shop, which creates all the signage that you see throughout the system, was primarily operating on paper. We digitized this very manual process for both ordering and delivery, which now allows the print shop to manage its workload, create some transparency in terms of pricing and timelines for delivery, which results in greater efficiency and expectation management. The same could also be said for digitizing rail operations certification process, which was also a paper and spreadsheet-based process. By digitizing the testing certification process, examiners are able to automatically record recertification results, which reduces the downtime spent on the 970 plus rail operators that are waiting certification and mitigates the risk of any of these recertifications from falling through the cracks. We are continuing to build out this internal capability, and over the course of the year, we'll be even more focused on delivery of products that support frontline operations like bus and facilities maintenance. The second part of our delivery approach is the focus on stabilizing infrastructure and the modernization of core systems. We continue to build out our hybrid cloud architecture, which means the integration of cloud with our on-premise data centers. This strategy is to provide a solid, secure, and scalable architecture that mitigates risk and provides necessary security to support core systems. This is also a platform that will support our future growth, the future growth of Metro. We also work to centralize and unlock various data across the enterprise. A significant achievement in this regard has been the consolidation of all trip planning data. This trip planning data had been spread across multiple systems and organizations, and we've put it into a single trip planning platform. This brings consistency in the way we bring real service information to the customers, as well as integrates all of our transit partners across the region. Last but not least, we continue to be hyper-focused on our security posture. We use the cyber exposure score, to provide quantifiable metrics to assess the effectiveness of our security practices. The cyber exposure score is a numerical representation of our overall cyber risk and its vulnerabilities to cyber threats. And even though we missed our target this reporting period of 350, 439 is still within the industry average of 471. Part of our ongoing work and the investment strategy in our roadmap is to continue to strengthen controls as an integrated component, cyber controls as an integrated component to all the work that we do. We have accomplished a lot here at Metro in terms of digital modernization, but there is much more to do. So I'd like to give you a preview of what will be coming. This is a very busy slide, so I apologize. It is a graphical representation of our digital modernization roadmap for the next 2 years. We have categorized these by how they support the continued build out of the digital ecosystem and support the strategic transformation plan. The majority of these projects are ongoing and at least partially funded in the current capital plan. And as we talked about last time, the plan isn't meant to be a one and done. We want to inculcate a modernist virtuous cycle, this positive loop of reinforcement of continuous improvement across the board. As Metro evolves, so should our technology. An example is our Maximo Asset Modernization Program. We received funding for an assessment and to replace the core, but all of our projects are implemented with an eye towards future scalability as our needs and technology continue to evolve. In the case of Maximo, this initial investment sets the data and operational foundation for our move to predictive maintenance and AI. We see enormous benefits of how AI can support Metro's value of continuous improvement. We look at AI as an integrated component to every project, not just a standalone tool. In fact, it's already a part of multiple projects that you saw in the roadmap. We're taking a methodical and structured approach to its deployment to ensure the best possible outcome for our workforce. We've created a new vertical in my organization called Data and AI, and we're currently recruiting for a vice president to fill that role. We have a cross-functional AI working group developing policy and governance guidelines and have worked with legal and procurement to develop new AI clauses for all of our contracts. Over the next several months, we'll be rolling out immersive training on how AI and AI best practices, and that has already started with the senior executive team. The training will include all WMATA senior leadership and will soon be available to every employee. The ultimate goal is to empower our workforce with AI, both at the personal productivity level, as well as support more sophisticated implementations, operational implementations, but with a controlled rollout and an upskilling strategy. I am very proud to have the opportunity to serve as the authority's Chief Digital Officer, particularly in this Metro's 50th year of operations. This system was a bold and innovative idea that began in the 1960s. From its cutting-edge automatic train operations to its brutalist design and architecture, to its bold vision of an accessible mass transit system to connect the region. It's the goal of the Digital and AI Acceleration Program to be consistent with that vision and to support Metro's momentum as we move into the next 50 years to deliver safe, frequent, reliable rail, bus, and Metro access service to the region. Apologize, I was a bit breezy, but I end there and welcome your questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nicholson. No, you moved through quite quickly. I appreciate that. So before I ask my one question, I'll see if any committee members have questions. Okay, Director Weber and then Chair Santos.
Great, thank you. Is that all right, Chair? Okay. Mr. Nicholson, thank you so much. This is really, can you go back to what is your slide 19 on the roadmap of initiatives? I was really struck by your language earlier in the presentation about needing to clean and liberate data and wanted an example, and I think it might be here in this slide. So of these, this is like a menu of all the things you're working on. So is there where do you think, related to our discussion earlier around the guidehouse guideline, think menu of opportunities that can have impact. Where on this list do you see of these items having the biggest operational impact on efficiency and an exciting product for the talented teams to deploy?
Well, I see one big one is the implementation of our ERP.
Okay.
And so we'll go live this summer. That is our human capital go live as well as our payroll go live, and that gives an enormous amount of insight into the workforce and the organization to leadership as well as frontline managers. The thing that also goes live with ERP is our new timekeeping tool. So it's an update of our current tool, but it also provides a lot of workforce management and tools directly in it, as well as some AI and AI agents that can be used to look across how we're managing our workforce, how we're spending our money, how we're allocating resources to specific projects. So the big one probably on here is the ERP modernization. The other one, as I mentioned in one of the examples, is our open trip planner. So that now provides a consolidated view of all the data around service-related data, where before we had a pocket of data here, a pocket of data there, it wasn't managed very well, and it wasn't very well organized. And so I think those two things, along with probably every one of these projects, has a data and data management piece to it, as well as any future projects.
Thank you.
Chair Santos.
I just had
General Manager,
one extra comment to that. So I think while Judge Uber focused on these things, I'm going to take just a 20,000-foot view that I think two that will provide long-term, I think you used the word efficiency, that even a higher level. And one is actually our Maximo upgrade. And Maximo, in many ways, is the other side of the coin to ERP. So ERP is in many ways the back of house, and so timekeeping and human capital and all of those type in procurement. But Maximo is really our asset management system that drives down into our maintenance management, and that is going to be very, very powerful. So if you go to the best transit agencies in the world, maintenance operation is what drives the entire operation, because your reliability is on the rail system, as a good example, would be 99%. And so to have 99%, you have to have absolute perfection in maintenance. And so that is where I think the biggest piece is going to be, and Judd has a lead on that, and Linda's helping architect that out. So I think that's going to be a big one. And then kind of an actionable way of that is our bus fleet maintenance assistant in many ways. So bus, we have a lot of divisions, a lot of individual units. And so, kind of a good example is if we could save $7,500 per unit a year on bus maintenance, it's about $10 million. And that $10 million can then either help us with our financial pressures or add bus service. And so those are the kind of things as we use both technology, we upgrade our facilities, the vehicles themselves are becoming much more complex, but also we've been working hard. All of our buses now talk remotely. And so now we're working through what we call telematics. So telematics is going to provide real-time information on all the sensors and equipment inside those vehicles. So we then pinpoint our maintenance activities versus kind of some of the regular scheduled stuff that we do now. Now we want to get way more precise. So the mechanic at a shop could be more targeted on their maintenance, how we want to do that at different periods of the day, different days a week, month overhauls, all of those types of things. So those two, I think, I'm the most excited about, but they're going to take a longer time, and it's really Teresa's world and Leroy's with the fleet side that are going to, you're going to see the 2, 5, 8, 10-year process in those two categories.
Great. All right. Chair Santos, go ahead.
Thank you, Director Alcorn. Thanks, Judd, and always enjoy your presentations because, again, I learned a tremendous amount. Just will note that last time when you pre-briefed Director Alcorn and myself, I had asked specifically for a little bit of different representation of the information just to make it easier for board members to react, and everyone's busy, so I still would like to see that. So among the issues I had inquired about, and you don't need to answer this today, but in particular, we're interested in risks that are mitigated by some of these investments and risks that are created. Just again, order of magnitude so that we understand what are the implications. And the other one that you spoke to using examples, but again, just so that we're clear, is cost and impact implications. So perhaps, at least for me, it would be helpful to see the largest, 5 largest investments in terms of, the level of investment. So, I mean, you've already spoken to some of them, obviously ERP and the things that the general manager mentioned, but just again, so that we're super clear on what is the return on investment to Metro. And also, I think that you mentioned some really excellent examples of impact. So maybe a small investment has a 10x impact, and it could be smaller things, but again, highlighting those for us in your next update sometime, I guess, in the quarter. I'm not sure what the cadence is, but
I think.
And then lastly, just wanted to invite you to comment, please, because I know some people, we as board members, we get briefed on these things, and we're generally familiar with the terminology and excited, if a little bit nervous about some of them, and take our responsibilities about risk seriously, obviously. Could you speak to, I think there's, for our customers and team members, and maybe the general manager may want to comment on this too. I think the two things that people get worried about is privacy, and what is Metro doing to guard concerns about privacy, and then the other one is just what are the implications about workforce in the near term, and that's more here. I know that from the many briefings that I've been involved in, there is none of these investments are about getting rid of staff. This more is about helping internally people to do their jobs better and allowing us to improve the quality, but wanted to give you and the GM a chance to speak to that.
Of course. On the privacy issues, so one of the things we are really looking at, particularly with the implementation of new technology or AI, is staying within the WMATA ecosystem. So ensuring that the proper controls are in place, and that we are really ensuring that the information, whether it's people information or operational information, is safe. And so we've built into that architecture those controls. And in our Microsoft ecosystem, we already have a lot of controls, and none of that data goes outside of that ecosystem. And so I think as we go through each of these, we can be a little bit more deliberate about, again, to your risk question, is where have we put specific projects to mitigate risk, or maybe even allow a little bit more risk, and where we can have some innovation as well. On the workforce piece, a part of each one of these is to give additional tools and capability to make the work that we're currently doing more efficient and effective, and use some of those savings for either more or expanded service. Even in my own organization, looking at what jobs should be done by WMATA employees and what jobs should be outsourced, and continue to do that analysis.
And Chair, I'll just add on the larger comment. So we are trying to constantly bring tools so we can make the overall performance of the organization better and empower our staff to be better and at their job, but also enjoy their job with those tools. Theoretically, that's how it works. So a good example would be, you've heard all along, like ATMs came to the banking sector, and everyone said there's going to be no one ever work at a bank again. There's more people work in banks today than before ATMs happened. But no one, I don't know anyone that goes to a bank and gets cash. Or if you do, it's a very, very, very small amount of people. Obviously, in 1985, everyone went to a bank to get cash. We used to have tolls on roads. Now we have transponders. Work is always going to evolve. And what we want to do is figure out, and we talk to our partners all the time about this. We need to upskill some positions. We need to transform other positions. What we want to do, though, is continue to drive overall service delivery. So, a good example, we were able to put some money in some savings last year, and we added that to more bus service. So, I'm not going to sit here in front. We actually have a lot of team members in the room today that said the exact amount of people we have today will be what we have in 10 years, or it's in the same category. But if we are going to continue to grow service, we're going to need human beings to drive that service. And that could be everything from operate a bus, to supervise that bus, to dispatch a bus, to maintain a bus. And so that, for us, every dollar we can maximize, our whole strategy for the last few years has been, is to add specifically bus service. And I think that's the big pressure we're hearing over and over, is bus service. And so it's not like a zero-sum game here. It's what the outcome of the organization. And I think the more we're all open that the world, and by the way, Metro doesn't control how the change is going to happen. We are just a cog within the world that's changing. And the world's changing really rapidly. And I think Judd is a good example of someone that can adjust really well with that, because he's really technology focused. And we are trying, and I think Sherry brings a lot of value on this topic, is helping people think through, there's an emotional side of change management as well. And we're trying to, kind of balance that.
Very good. All right. Anything else, Chair Santos? I just have one question and then a couple more comments. You talked about, with the cyber example, metrics that you have for that initiative. Do you have metrics, or maybe return on ROI or KPIs? There are a lot of different ways to couch this for each of these things on here.
Yes, there is a metric or a return on assessment before each of these projects. So whether it is cost savings or efficiencies, or in some cases we need to digitize for, that would be an efficiencies metric. So yeah, what we can do during our next briefing is, I think we agreed 2 times a year, we can then outline like what those are, a little bit more specific about those. Yeah.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you very much. And by the way, great presentation, very impressive. Dr. Lowe.
We need like a Maximo thermometer, like when nonprofits are like trying to close gaps at the end of the year. Okay, I think the predictive maintenance piece about this is something that's really exciting to me. I think when people think of AI, a lot of people are thinking of the large language models right now and their application to knowledge work, and that's whatever. Like, predictive maintenance is going to be a game changer for Metro, but I think we can think even bigger about it. For Metro to develop these kinds of capabilities so early in the game, it's going to be way in front of local government here in the region, and this can be an opportunity for Metro to add more value to the region. So, for example, we already have cameras on the outside of every bus. So the cameras are driving all around DC looking at the road. Okay, but right now, the way that DC repaves roads is the same way that Metro maintains buses. We're going to do it every X year, whether you need it or not. Metro is going to be in a position where it's going to have all of the data that it needs in order to help DC predictively resurface. Do you see what I'm saying? Like a little camera on the butt of every bus, just like looking at the road. And we should be thinking about how we can return value to our jurisdictional partners and help them grow in the way that Metro is going. Because honestly, this is so mature for Metro as an organization. Metro's just going to be there before the local governments. I'm just seeing some Fairfax nodding, so I just know I'm right.
I thought you were going to talk about monetizing the data, but I'm glad you didn't go there. So that's good.
Oh my God, I was totally not going to do that, Walter.
No, thank you, Dr. Lowe. Very, very good. Director McAndrew.
Just very quickly, I appreciate the good work on MetroPulse, but as a user, I just wanted to acknowledge that maybe we need a user video on how to use MetroPulse, because I've tried desperately and then I convert back over to the transit app once I'm like, where and how and what. So just a user feedback, not saying my feedback is warranted because it is what it is, but just my own observations.
Go to wamata.com/feedback and
Director McAndrew, we're going through a complete redesign of MetroPulse, and so our goal is to deliver the redesign in the May timeframe, the same time that we roll out new wamata.com. So thank you for that.
Ooh, did somebody say wamata.com is getting a refresh? Hallelujah.
No, thank you very much. As Mr. Nicholson said, we are going to be trying to do a 2 times a year update on these digital transformations. So I think maybe by the next one, we'll see both the wamata.com update and also the new app. So thank you very much. If there are no other questions for this, that was very breezy. Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. We do have our regular meeting. You want to do a 5-minute break? Okay, so let's do a
7 minutes.
7. Okay. 7-minute break. Who's going to hold us to that one? 10. Okay, I see 10. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break before we come back with a regular board meeting. Okay, the committee meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Good day. I'm Valerie Santos, Chair of the Metro Board. Thank you for joining us on this very special day. We will begin our board meeting with the approval of the agenda. I would like to consider the agenda approved as presented. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Thank you. We have 3 sets of minutes for approval. We have February 26 board meeting, February 26 executive session, and March 12 executive session. I would like to consider these minutes approved as presented. No objections heard. The minutes are approved. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move to the public comment period and reports by our advisory bodies. The way we're going to do this is we will invite folks who are here in person that have signed up to provide comment. And I see a lot of folks are here, so I want to, and I see a number of names on the sheet. I'm going to remind our speakers, please, to keep your comments within 2 minutes to allow for an opportunity for everyone to speak. With that, I'm just going to read names in order. So Mr. Barry Wilson.
Good afternoon, members of the board and everyone in attendance. My name is Barry Wilson. I am the recording secretary for Local 689. I stand here before you as a proud member of ATU Local 689 and an employee of WMATA for the past 26 years. I'm here to speak on behalf of the station managers I represent. Recently, station managers have been required to stand outside their kiosks for the entirety of their shift. For many, this creates a serious challenge. A number of employees in this classifications are here because they were medically disqualified and previously for physical limitations. The station manager's classification was created with that reality in mind to ensure these employees could continue their career here at WMATA. For decades, previous administration understood this. Some station managers have worked in this role for more than 25 years without being required to stand outside their kiosks for their entire shift. Now I understand the GM's vision for improving accountability and customer service, but changing decades of established practice overnight can damage the morale and ultimately impact the very service we are trying to improve. If the goal is for better service, discipline alone will not change the culture. Working together will have us reach that continued goal. I've attended meetings for many years, back when they were at LaFont Plaza, and now here at, back when they were at Jackson Graham and now here at LaFont Plaza. And every time I attended, everyone in the room is seated throughout the meeting. So perhaps we should apply that same vision here. How about all of us stand for the remainder of this meeting and for future meetings in solidarity with the station managers who are expected to do the same. After all, these meetings don't last as nearly long as the station manager's full shift. In closing, the majority of our station managers do an outstanding job every day. In fact, one of our own station managers was recently recognized with an Emmy Award for excellent customer service. That recognition speaks volumes about the dedication of our workforce. So the question becomes, should these dedicated employees be punished because a small number may simply need additional training and guidance? I respectfully ask that you reconsider this requirement and instead invest in training and support that will help station managers continue to deliver the service our customers deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for sharing your views. Ms. Kira Baker.
Good morning, everyone. I'm a station shop steward as well as a station manager, and I truly enjoy what I do each day assisting customers who are new to the area or visiting, helping them navigate to tourist destinations and making their experience both enjoyable and stress-free. It's rewarding to help people feel confident using the system without fear of getting lost. However, during my time with the company, I have experienced numerous situations where I did not feel safe. I had a customer expose himself to me while I was opening a station. I have witnessed a customer commit a crime in a station and made threats towards me. As a result, I am now required to appear in court as a witness for that incident. I have been charged at by a customer who intended to attack me, and I've dealt with stalking, witnessed violent incidents, and supported individuals in crisis, including someone who was in distress considering suicide. As a station manager, we wear many hats, often taking on responsibility that go far beyond the scope of our official duties. While we remain committed to serving the public, these experiences highlight the very real safety risks we face on a daily basis. With the recent policy requiring us to stand outside for the entirety of our shift, these risks are significantly increased. Constant exposure to the public without consistent access to police or security support places us in a highly vulnerable position. This requirement not only impacts our sense of safety, but also our ability to effectively perform our roles. I'm asking that these concerns be taken seriously, with consideration both given to our safety and the realities of the work we perform each day.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Next speaker is Ms. Washington. Kesha.
Hello, everyone. I'm standing here today not just as a wife, but as someone whose family has been forever changed by something that should have never happened. My husband was sexually assaulted while he was at work, while simply doing his job. He was required to stand outside the kiosk, exposed and, unprotected, placed in a situation that put him directly in danger. That is not safety, that is not protection. No one should have to choose between earning a paycheck and risking their safety. What happened to my husband didn't just affect him, it affected our entire family. I've watched him carry anxiety, fear, and trauma no one should have to endure. And yet the conditions that made this possible are still being required of other workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Guy Washington. Okay. Oh, there he is.
Good morning. My wife mentioned mostly what happened to me. I'm a new station manager. I just went to court Monday, and thank God my union reps did show me some love and support. My wife showed me support, and we had to go back to court in April because the person didn't show up. But it's just messed up. Thank you. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. Ms. Jampsia Campbell.
Good morning. Let's be clear about what this is and what this is not. This is not about people who don't want to work. We are the same station managers who help make this system #1 in customer service in the entire country. This didn't happen by accident. This happened because we show up, we engage with the public, and we take pride in what we do. So don't let anyone twist this narrative. This is about safety, health, and respect. Right now, station managers are being required to stand outside the kiosk up to 15 hours a day, with discipline attached if they don't. That is not reasonable. That is not sustainable. And over time, that is not safe. The wear and tear on the human body day after day, year after year matters. We should be able to retire from this job with our bodies intact, not broken down from policies that ignore basic human limits. And let's talk about ADA. Our contract recognizes that there are employees that have ADA accommodations. That is not optional. That is protected. But we have a CEO who said, if you can't meet these new demands, you should call the Office of Health and Welfare and find another job. That is not accommodation. That is displacement. And that is unacceptable. Now let's talk about safety, not just ours, but the riding public. Every critical tool that we need is inside that kiosk. The AED, the first aid, the fire panel, the CCTV, the communication systems. When something happens on that platform, and it will, people don't go looking around the mezzanine. They run to the kiosk because that's where help is supposed to be. We are the only classification that is CPR certified in that station. We are the eyes, the ears, the first to respond. If someone collapses, if someone is too close to the granite edge, if something is happening on a platform, seconds matter. And if we are not in position to see it, respond to it, or communicate it, then we are not preventing incidents. We are reacting too late. And that comes at a cost. Lastly, let's be honest about how we got here. The entire workforce is being penalized because a small group of individuals weren't doing what they were supposed to do. You don't fix that by punishing everybody. You fix that by addressing the issue directly. Because what's happening right now is not accountability. It's overcorrection. What we are asking for the ability to do our jobs the right way, to move between the kiosk and the station without arbitrary limits, to protect our health and continue protecting the riding public the way we always have. Because safety doesn't have a time limit. Health doesn't have a time limit. And doing the job the right way shouldn't either. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. The next person, and please forgive me. Okay, thank you. I can only read as well as someone's writings, and forgive my poor eyes. So if I butcher people's pronunciation, I think this says PL Dates?
Mr. Dates.
Uh-huh.
Good afternoon to all of you. Just wanted to take a second to look at the fact that what these people are speaking to is the fact that a lot of people got hurt on the job, off the job, and this was a position that they were able to do. It's been going on for quite some time. We have a very young man that's running the company right now, and that's fine. But there were people that did it before him, and they agreed to a certain process. And that process was that if you get hurt, you may go down there, if you can work down there on the stations, and that works for you. Well, the doctor's notes, many of them said that they can't stand for long periods, they can't sit for long periods. This was a job that worked well for both parties. They were able to sit a little bit, stand a little bit, and assist with the membership needs for whoever was there. So now a bright new idea comes up, and you're going to tell somebody who's already been there for 10 years doing the job, you now have to do it this way. That's reclassification, and that's changing your job description. Nobody minds doing a job when you say, I'm hiring you to do this, I'm going to pay you this much. That's the agreement. But if you want to change it in the ninth inning, and now they're ready to retire and leave, and they can't do it. Some of them in their 60s. Some of them don't have it. Some of them are very youthful, but they've had hip surgeries. Standing for that long period of time is going to bring on varicose veins. It's going to bring on bad knees and bad hips. So you have to be mindful of what you're doing. So I'll end that comment with that, but I also want to put it like that we have what we call a contract, which means both parties have agreed to whatever the arbitrator says, we're going to do it. WMATA has been losing some cases, and the arbitrator has said that the people should come back to work, they should not have been fired, and you should make them whole with the finance that they would have gained. The company's dragging their feet on that. They're not bringing them back to work within 60, 80, 90 days, a year later, 7 months later, they're still not back to work. Many of them don't get paid what they're supposed to get paid over a long period of time. Sounds like bitter grapes. I know you're better than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dates. Next up, we have Pastor Lionel Edmonds.
Good afternoon. I actually am also speaking on behalf of President Raymond Jackson, who had to attend to a wedding, so I can combine his statement as well as my statement. 2 + 2 is 4 minutes, but I won't take 4 minutes. I'll reduce it to try to do 3 minutes. So I'm going to read, well, I pastor Mount Lebanon Baptist Church in Washington, D.C. I'm a former co-founder of the Washington Interfaith Network. Presently, I'm the co-founder of DC Power. Power stands for People Organized for Wealth, Equity, and Respect. I represent 38 congregations, 2 unions, of which 689 is part of it. Also, we have a sister organization in Prince George's County that has 40 churches. Glad to be here. I'm going to read President Jackson's statement first. Good morning, Chair Santos and the WMATA board. I'm here today to talk about the treatment of workers of 689, not just the station managers, although I would like to state that in all professions, there are going to be bad workers as well as bad managers. But in any case where there is a bad worker, you should not punish your entire workforce for what a handful of bad workers have done. I believe you have heard enough about station managers. Let me tell you the real problems we're having, like the authority not honoring settlements made between the parties. The authority knows that the arbitration schedule is backed up at least a year before the case can be heard, and they are taking advantage of the partnership we have built in the region because of it. Employees going into training and the authority reducing their wages when the contract says that the employees should maintain their rate of pay while in training. But because the member did not know about the provision in the contract, now instead of going back and making the corrections, they're asking the union to accept a settlement where they could only go back 1 year and pay the affected people. There's so much more I would like to say, but there's just not enough time. So what I would like to ask is to have a meeting with the board members, although that would be very nice. And I second President Jackson's request. We would like to have a meeting between the board, Brother Clark, DC Power. We are concerned in the faith community about the moral implications of automation. Historically, transit has been a gateway for the minority community to enter into middle class. If this door closes, we may go the way of the Midwest, which refused or did not have the vision when the automotive industry transitioned. Many minorities, including my family, almost lost being in the middle class. We don't want that to happen. So once again, my request, along with President Jackson, is to have a meeting with you, Brother Clark, as we can shape a shared vision on the economic equity of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Next speaker is Mike Golash.
Actually, I'm going to change the subject a little bit slightly and talk about post-retirement benefits. Over the last 40 or 50 years, the union and management have worked together to provide a well-funded pension system for our employees. We've made a number of modifications to make sure that benefit was adequately funded. So when a worker retires, his pension is pre-funded and it's available to him for the rest of his life. Over this course of years, over the last 10 or 15 years, we've been discussing the issue of retiree health insurance, which we have never pre-funded. Unfortunately, that is driving up the cost of retiree health insurance. And because of people's longer lifespans, and because of the fact that health insurance is rising at a rate faster than the rate of inflation, it's become unsustainable in the future. So unless we begin today to invest money in a fund which will provide health insurance for retired employees in the future, we're going to have very difficult times maintaining that. So what we're recommending is that the union and management get together and discuss a proposal to pre-fund retiree health insurance. If we don't do that, we're going to wind up the same problem that Social Security is having by not pre-funding it, that the Postal Service is having with not pre-funding its retiree health insurance for employees. Unsustainable funding The current estimate is that retiree health insurance is the unfunded liability is over $1 billion. That money has to be set aside at some time to provide the benefit for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Bill Orleans.
I thought there would be more people speaking. I would like to think that in future Metro meetings, we might see this many or more 689 folks present and speaking. Earlier today, there was much angst, much discussion over the fact that there are no, or at least there should be no free rides on Metro. One might say there's no such thing as a free lunch. Maybe not everyone in the room will understand that likely after this board meeting concludes today, there's going to be an more extensive than usual free lunch upstairs. So there is such a thing as a free lunch, but it's exclusive. Not all of us are invited. Similarly, while it's true, there's no such thing as a free ride, that does not mean that the cost of that ride should necessarily come from fares. There are alternate ways to fund what's the much necessary money Metro needs. And to that end, 3 years ago, there was a widely hailed partnership between the Board of Directors of WMATA and the Council of Governments Board of Directors, DMV Moves. Its goal was to come up with sustainable, dedicated funding for Metro. And much of the discussion earlier today was about Metro effectively going, maybe with a partner in the Council of Governments Board, but essentially going hat in hand to Richmond and hat in hand to Annapolis and saying, we need this much money. That's not dedicated. The appropriate alternative would be for the compact to be amended. The Metro Board should be elected and the Metro Board should have its own taxing authority. And we would then be able to come up with sufficient funds to fund Metro. And it would not be free, but it would be fare free. Are we all invited to lunch today?
Okay, thank you for your comments. Next, we will hear from Accessibility Advisory Committee Chair Pat Sheehan. Pat, welcome.
No, I'm good. Yeah. Oh, microphone is a lot closer than I thought. I'd like to shift the conversation, take a moment of personal privilege if I can. Anu, who was out for a little bit, is back with us with the AAC. And I just wanted to commend her to the board for the work that she has done, her work ethic, professionalism, and dedication to the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Because of the work, we do some good work, we've got some good people, but a lot of it is done, organized, and held together by Anu. And I just wanted to thank her for myself and for the rest of the AAC for that work, professional work that she has done, keeping us on track. A lot of what you see that we get accomplished is because she does such great work. I know that we've talked about resources and a lot of technical tracks and cars and trains, but the resources that WMATA has that they benefit from are really from the people that do the work. And Anu is one of the best of the best. And Anu, I just want to say thank you for what you've done, and from the rest of the committee, welcome back, and thank you for being such a consummate professional. She's probably going to yell at me later for all that. But anyway, let me go to the committee and give you an idea of what we've been doing. We've been having some in-person meetings, which we find very valuable. At those meetings last month, we talked about signal tracks, what they got a briefing on that, what they mean to WMATA. It's not all totally accessibility related, but I thought it was important for my committee to understand what will be going on as really a #1 priority for the next 10, 15 years. Conversation was very well received. We also had a discussion about what had happened with the recent snows that we had in January, end of January, February timeframe, how they affected people with disabilities. We put together a list of issues that we had come up with that were all nicely consolidated by one of our members, Sarah, and had a good discussion of which we have communicated that back upstairs to individuals at within WMATA. And I think both of those discussions were really well done. And I think that the issues and results that we communicated back upstairs were very, very good. One of the things that, and I'm also going to give kudos to Dr. Butler, Maggie Butler. One of the things that she is helping to work with us with AAC within system-wide accessibility is going from a reactive mode to a proactive mode in which we're looking at issues, bringing projects and plans before WMATA, and then working them upstairs through the different levels of leadership and getting the results. I think within the next couple of months, we expect to see some feedback on the restrooms as far as where that project stands, the feasibility of working with feasibility study on eligibility and how that will move forward. And then also on emergency preparedness and how the AAC can work with the folks who are doing the training and training of train operators and others to impact and maybe educate those individuals on the needs of people with disabilities. These are all things that we've taken, that we have worked on individually over the years, but with Dr. Butler's help, we are making that a more formal initiative going forward, and I think that that's excellent. With respect to a couple of other areas, Metro Access, I would love to report that we have just signed, or you have just signed on Lyft as one of the providers. Disability community, particularly those folks who are blind, use service animals, and others are very happy with that. So I think that's great. I know last year, 1.6 million out of the 2.1 million trips were abilities ride trips. And I think that by and large, individuals are very happy with that. Kudos for ADA programs for doing such a magnificent job with that. And I think we'll be moving forward in that area. On Monday, we had a executive session. I think it was the first executive session I've been in 35 years with AAC to talk about the administrative fee with respect to abilities ride. There were lots of process questions about how that would be paid and throughout with the AAC. And by and large, we recognize that this a fee would be coming to help support the program. And there was a lot of good discussion, but no pushback on whether the fee was really needed. For 7 years, we have really had free rides from the ability to ride that portion of the project, and we knew that some type of fee, administrative fee, would be coming. So AAC, by and large, I think supports that decision going forward. And with respect to bus and rail, as I said earlier, we've been working with the signage group. We expect to see a rollout sometime within the April-May timeframe. Kudos to Dr. Butler and to the signage working group that we have established, and also the partnership that we are putting together with Sarah Meyer's group to be able to speed up what we're doing, taking what could have been 6 months to 9 months and doing within a 2 or 3 month time frame. So real pleased with the efforts of my committee. Appreciate the what the board support has given us, and Randy and all. We're looking forward to a good year. Are there any questions for me?
Not a question, but just a comment. Pat, thank you for your feedback to us about the administrative fee, because that I know was something that the board has discussed, and appreciate your committee's collaboration with Metro about this, and we're grateful to have such a positive working relationship. And the second thing was just to say thank you so much for your dedication and for taking a moment to recognize Anu, because as you know, there's so many unsung folks that are here that do excellent work, and just by the nature of how many people are here and how many things the board is engaging, sometimes people don't get as recognized as they should for their excellent service. So thanks for taking a moment to say that.
Great, thank you.
Next, we will hear from the Writers Advisory Council Chair, Cole Stout.
Good afternoon, everyone. You got it. Thank you. Pleased to report this month's annual report of the Writers Advisory Council. We are really close to having a draft report, annual report. We've had a record number of responses this year for our annual report, and the preliminary data is tracking really closely to what you all heard in your budget public feedback report in terms of the top concerns that writers continue to express across the system. Folks generally are pretty happy about rail, and I think we all know the challenges on bus in terms of reliability and frequency, and we'll have a full report with all of the comments so you can read through all of the comments. Director Hayden-Lowe, as I know you like to do, we'll have that for you next month. This is my final meeting as the chair of the RAC. So for the last 2 years, I've been able to lead this great group of individuals who come from across the region with a great depth of experience and touch points in the system. And so I was thinking a bit about when the RAC was formed, the board created this group of riders to help advise them when the system was in a state of disrepair. I think we all remember what that was like. And I know we've grown and changed, and seen what this team at Metro has done to bring us to be one of the premier transit agencies in the country. And so as WMATA celebrates its 50th anniversary, there's a lot to look back on, but there's really great challenges ahead. And we at the RAC really encourage the board and the staff to keep riders and the communities it serves at the forefront of its work. We've built at the RAC deep connections into community groups that can help the board and the staff overcome some of the financial and political challenges that will lay ahead as we continue thinking about how we can serve the region and prepare it for the future that lies ahead. And as I wrap my term, I have one final ask for the board and the board alternates, and it's that you desperately need a new board liaison. Since Bryna left us, she as a new chair, I remember her providing a great hand to help make sure that I can direct the RAC to where the board needs our efforts, so we can ensure whether that's deploying the Better Bus Better Bus network, and how do we get to that visionary network, and where do we pull the levers, and how's that going to impact riders? We really need that steady hand for a new chair that will take over next month. And so I know you all have a lot to do. We all are volunteers on the RAC, and so it's an extra thing. But if you or any of the alternate board members have a couple hours to spare to the RAC, it really helps us do our work better. So that way we're an actual service to the board in your decision-making process. And with that, that concludes my report. Yes.
You think I'm letting you out of here without you saying something about outdoor boarding? You got another thought coming.
Yeah.
Have you guys talked about it yet? How's everyone
Outdoor
feeling?
boarding? I think we like outdoor boarding. It speeds up the process. I sit and watch the U Street and 16th Street interchange every morning and see 3 or 4 buses pull up and single door boarding. There's probably 50 or 60 people standing at that spot every morning around 8:30, and it's just, as one of the highest frequency highest ridership routes, how do we continue moving buses through faster, and especially in a corridor that does have a lot of red paint and priority signals? I think we also at the same time are trying to weigh the impacts to the budget. When you have outdoor boarding, what are the impact, there are the pay stations in the back, and I've been known to pop on the back door and tap in the back, but is there a difference I think staff should take a look at, is there a difference between the rate at which someone will pay if they enter in the front door or the back door, or if someone's committed to not tapping, are they just going to get on no matter what door they enter? And how does that impact the rider experience? I think generally riders would say we want all door boarding. The faster I can get my bus from point A to point B is better. I think as staff, you definitely have staff on the board, you have a bigger decision point when you're talking about how do you increase fare box returns. That is why you all get to sit on the board, and I am just on an advisory council.
Okay, and I have an update for you. You missed the last board meeting where the
did.
staff shared that the compliance with the fare policy is comparable at the front and back door. And so we don't anticipate a budget impact to rolling out all-door boarding system-wide. So should we do it?
Well, I think I can't speak for all riders, but my personal opinion is yes, if it speeds up frequencies and boarding times and trip times, it's a overall benefit to the riders and increases satisfaction across the system.
Thank you.
Appreciate your respect for balancing our considerations. I think the data is, we should have a discussion about what the data actually said, that once we got the data in the lower rate of fare payment on the rear door. But yes, we've got real budget implications to deal with there.
Thank you, Cole. And can we just take a moment to recognize Cole for his service? Cole has been a strong and thoughtful advocate for Metro riders in his tenure on the RAC. And so just want to really express our appreciation for your time as much as your passion and very much a lot of your thoughtfulness that have helped shape policies, obviously, and inform the board. So we appreciate you. That concludes our advisory body reports. Now we're going to go on to the chair's report. So today, as has been mentioned, we are celebrating a happy milestone, which is 50 years of Metro service. For half a century, Metro has served as the connective tissue of our national capital region, quietly shaping our economic vitality and development while carrying millions of people to many of our countries, as much as our region's most defining moments, from presidential inaugurations to World Series celebrations, from the surge of cherry blossom visitors, as we're experiencing now, each spring, to the sea of red, white, and blue each 4th of July. Metro has moved not just crowds, but history. Just as importantly, it is woven into the rhythm of daily life. Each day, Metro carries hundreds of thousands of people to work, to school, to opportunity, and back home. We bring concertgoers and theater patrons to world-class performances, diners to celebrated restaurants and neighborhood gyms, and obviously travelers to and from airports and Union Station. For many, Metro is more than transportation. It is access to family and friends, healthcare, education, and community. Our deepest thanks go to our employees, our operators, maintenance teams, engineers, safety personnel, frontline staff. Their dedication, often behind the scenes and obviously under tremendous pressure, keeps the system moving every day. This anniversary belongs to them as much as to the institution itself. And needless to say, we also want to thank our riders and the communities that we serve for the trust put in Metro. Public transit is more than transportation. It's access, it's economic mobility, and it's become part of our region's self-concept. It defines our identity. In recent years, we've made meaningful strides in safety, reliability, and customer experience. We've modernized infrastructure, embraced new technology, some of which we've heard about today, and strengthened accountability, which we've also heard about today. This anniversary is not just about marking longevity, it's about celebrating positive impact, resilience, and public trust. Today, we recognize the visionaries who brought the system to life and the generations of employees who have sustained it. Therefore, I would like to move approval of the following ceremonial resolution. Recognizing the 50th anniversary of Metro and honoring the leaders who shaped America's Metro system, whereas the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, WMATA, was established through an interstate compact among the District of Columbia, the State of Maryland, and the Commonwealth of Virginia, approved by the United States Congress to plan, build, and operate a unified regional transit system. And whereas Metro Rail service began on March 27, 1976, launching a regional transit system that has grown over 5 decades into one of the nation's largest and most vital networks, serving 264 million riders this past year across the National Capital Region. And whereas Metro's strength and success have been guided by the leadership of its general managers and chief executive officers and the dedicated service of its board members across 5 decades, many of whom are here today. Whereas Metro employees have demonstrated extraordinary dedication to operating, maintaining, and modernizing the system while keeping safety as our core value. And whereas the 50th anniversary of Metro provides an opportunity to celebrate the region's history, the organization's history, recognize the leaders and employees whose commitment made this system possible, and reaffirm Metro's place as America's metro system. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors proudly recognizes and celebrates the 50th anniversary of Metro, commemorating the commencement of Metro Rail service on March 27 of 1976. And be it further resolved that the board expresses its profound gratitude to Metro's former and current general manager, chief executive officer, former and current board members, and the former and current dedicated employees whose leadership, service, and vision have shaped and sustained Metro over the past 5 decades. And be it further resolved that the board reaffirms its commitment to ensuring that Metro remains safe, reliable, innovative, and worthy of its designation as America's metro system for generations to come. Can I get a second? Seconded by all my fellow board members. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, for old time's sake, I'll ask our former board members to also join us and show your support. Former board members, all in favor? Thank you. While we are proud of this progress, we recognize that our work continues and will need to evolve to meet changes in our economy, our society, technology, and opportunities to come. The next 50 years demand this innovation, sustainability, and adaptability. As a board, we are committed to strong governance, transparency, and long-term stewardship. We will continue to make decisions that prioritize riders, support our workforce, and strengthen and continue to maintain public confidence. Today, we celebrate the past. As importantly, we commit to investing in the future. So here's to the next 50 years of service, connection, and progress. This concludes my report. And I will now turn the floor over to our general manager for his report.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, first off, I want to give, on behalf of the whole staff, a welcome back to headquarters for all of our previous general managers and board members. The building looks a little different than the building that you all had the privilege to be in, and we do not have a spiral staircase in this building, but hopefully I think it looks a little better at the end of, but it is being refurbished, and it's another great symbol and anchor in the downtown core. But seriously, welcome back. We're excited to have you all here. We have 2 employees that I thought it'd be fun to kind of recognize as apropos of our 50th, and it's Mark Pohl and Greg Garbeck, both 43 years. Right, Greg, 43? Yeah, 43. And I think they're both committed to hitting 50. But I thought it was really fun to have them both here because they've obviously interacted with so many board members over their past. And if you ever need to know a secret, you go to Mark Pohl because he wrote or edited every document probably in the history of this place. But it is an unbelievable honor to be the general manager of Metro. In a lot of ways, the ultimate dream job for someone that loves this industry, that's been in this industry. It's just an amazing place to be. I want to recognize we have most of the members of the senior executive team here as well. There's a couple former GMs, and a lot of the board members know the exec team here and the management team. It is we'll say it's a labor of love. It's really a life commitment to the organization. It's a 24/7, 365 operation. I just want to publicly recognize what they do every day. Plus, I feel for them. They actually have to work with me on a daily basis, which can be a little tough. But I just want you to know how much I appreciate what you do and all the previous executive teams and management teams that have worked here. I've had the opportunity to interact over the years with many people in the management teams, and things come and go, and there's always reasons for decisions. But I don't think anyone questions questions the actual integrity and work ethic that people put into this place. We are in the fishbowl. There's lots of politics, not just the local, but the federal, and a lot of people have worked through that. Unbelievable, and Chair, your remarks were amazing. To me, it's the pride of what we do is what's so amazing about Metro. And as you walked in, we have Metro's Cherry Blossom and 50th anniversary pop-up store. And that's not a pitch for former board members to spend money, but, yes, it is. But we will give you a discount. But what it really shows, I think, is how the community values Metro, and that's the symbolism of why they buy pieces. And a former board member and general manager Tangolini actually dropped by a broken mug for me one day. Those are the types of things that connect our community. And to go from kind of moments in time where we've had some troubles to having our light duty folks work at a pop-up store and sell $50,000, $60,000 a day in retail, where people are selling out of t-shirts and hoodies and shower curtains or foggy bottom Speedos or other things. To me, that is such an amazing feeling, because it means we are delivering what the community demands of us, which is reliable, safe transportation so we can make their life better. And I know I speak for the entire staff. It is an absolute honor to be part of this. So we are going to celebrate today our 50th with former board members and GMs. Tomorrow is our official 50th anniversary. As we know, pennants are a big deal at Metro, so we'll be out early in the morning with pennants. We have a special train ride tomorrow afternoon. The first train ride ever happened between Rhode Island and Farragut North. We're actually going to do the reverse as the 50-year tomorrow with a big celebration, and we have a contest out for the public on some special tickets to do that. And I know there's been a lot of responses to that. So we look forward to celebrating tomorrow. I will then say we plan on celebrating the 50th throughout the rest of the, through the spring and summer season, because it's also America's 250th. And we are working really closely with America 250, the administration, and others to celebrate well, we're lucky, right? We have this amazing metro system, but it's really a gift to the country in so many ways. And we are going to celebrate on the National Mall and part of America 250 with Metro being a focal point of that, because, this place has gone from, we've had, when Rosa Parks passed, we've had a Rosa Parks bus that picked her up, her body up at BWI, took her to the Capitol. When 9/11 happened, obviously, Metro was there to evacuate the district. There's so many proud moments of Metro's history that connect America's history, and it's a perfect year to celebrate both together. So again, thank you for all being here. We have a great video now to just highlight just the amazingness of Metro that we're also fortunate to be part of. So if we could play the video, please.
In 1969, construction began on a bold idea: a transit system built to connect a growing region. On March 27, 1976, almost 7 years later, Metro's first trains began carrying passengers through Washington, D.C., and America's Metro system was born. The first Red Line stations, Rhode Island Avenue, Union Station, Metro Center, and Farragut North, marked the beginning of something transformative. Metro didn't just move people, it helped shape how our region lives, works, and grows. Over the past 5 decades, Metro has grown alongside the community it serves, expanding rail lines, building one of the nation's largest bus networks, and launching Metro Access to ensure mobility for all. But Metro has always been more than trains, buses, and paratransit. It's the employees who show up every day: operators, mechanics, station managers, support staff, and the millions of customers who rely on us to connect them to possibilities. Today, Metro includes 98 stations and 128 miles of rail. Our buses operate around the clock across a 1,500 square mile region. Every day, we help move close to 1 million people safely, reliably, and sustainably. For 50 years, Metro has connected communities, strengthened the region's economy, and supported the vibrancy of the DMV, celebrating all the differences that make us great. And today, Metro is #1 in the nation. Crime is at an all-time low, and customers have access to more frequent, safe, and reliable bus and trains. The most service we've delivered in our history. And as we look ahead, we remain committed to delivering service excellence and continuous improvements for our customers for the next 50 years and beyond.
Thank you, and great video. We typically have reports by the,
I think, Marina, are you introducing the cake and the
jurisdiction?
I thought you were doing the cake.
No.
No?
Oh, that's you.
Oh. Sorry, we're debating who's doing the cake. Okay, we're all doing the cake. Happy 50th birthday. I'm sorry, I thought we were doing it after the jurisdictional. That looks fantastic. Thank you, Sam.
All right. We usually do reports by jurisdictions. I just have very small things, so invite my colleagues to go. Folks from Maryland?
Yep, real quick, exciting day, but also acknowledging that we're entering peak cherry blossom season, and if people want to avoid the big crowds downtown, they're encouraged to search the Prince George's County website to find the Prince George's County cherry tree map that shows every single cherry tree in the county, separated by type, including the Yoshino trees that are reaching peak bloom right now, a large number of which can be found in the Kettering neighborhood next to Watkins Regional Park. You can also check out cherry blossoms in the Kenwood neighborhood and Brookside Gardens in Montgomery County.
Thank you for the PSA. Director Alcorn?
Thank you. I have two items. First of all, I mentioned earlier the General Assembly in Virginia is meeting later in April during their budget session. They are going to be talking about Metro funding. Hopefully we'll see some good things come out of that. And then second, I have something specific to Fairfax County with a little bit of personal privilege. I have a resolution that was adopted by the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to read the resolved portion of it. And then afterwards, perhaps we could have a photo of the Fairfax County folks that are here. So be it resolved that the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, on behalf of its 1.2 million residents, does hereby recognize and celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, commend its lasting contributions to Fairfax County and the National Capital Region, and express its deep appreciation to WMATA's employees, leadership, and partners for their continued commitment to providing safe, reliable, and efficient public transportation for all. Signed by Chairman Jeffrey C. McKay, Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, and some guy named Alcorn. But anyway, yeah, again, just piling on with the 50th anniversary, and love to, should we get a photo now, or? Yeah.
One small thing.
Sure,
and we'll
please.
start all the photos and stuff, so we don't have to get up and sit down.
Okay.
Okay, just a couple minor things that I was asked to mention. So there is, y'all have heard of a new stadium coming to DC? There is the RFK Community Open House this Saturday, March 28th, where residents can learn more about the master plan and provide input. It's going to be held from 10 to 12 at St. Coletta, which is at 1901 Independence. Details are online, obviously. And the second thing is, as was mentioned, obviously it's cherry blossom bloom this weekend, and there will be a Blossom Kite Festival from 10 to 4 on the Washington Monument grounds. So encourage folks to participate and enjoy. And if there's no other announcements, Aya.
At the risk of, you always run risk when you recognized a distinguished visitor, but I did want to acknowledge State Senator Malcolm Augustine, who's joined us today, who is, of course, a longtime supporter of Metro and trying to help us again with DMV Muse. So thank you for being here, Senator.
With no further formal business to come before the board, we stand adjourned. Thank you for joining us today. Happy 50th anniversary, and now to pictures and cake and celebrations.